right. My brother. I'm just following you. Well, welcome to the Candidates Forum. We're going to be getting started in just a few minutes. My name is Art Norman, Channel 5 News, and we have a lot of candidates here today. Some are not going to be here, but you know, those who are not here lose in the long run because they don't get a chance for you to hear them. So we have a lot of candidates here today. So that's a good thing, a real good thing. And this is a wonderful event. We just want to let you know who's sponsoring it. And we got a long list of sponsors, but we can't do it without sponsors. The Chatham Avalon Community Council, the Chatham Business Association, Chesterfield Community Council, Park Manor Neighbors Community Council, Reunite Chatham, West Chesterfield Community Association. This is who we are and who's going to be here today. Got a lot of people. So get your ears up and get ready. Let me give you some of the ground rules that's going to happen while we're here today. We're going to try to keep it civil. We don't want anybody making campaign speeches, so we've cut off the dialogue from the floor. But if you have a really good question, you give it to one of our facilitators, and I will read your question. Now, most of the questions will come from the journalists who are here. We got some great journalists here to represent everybody, and let me tell you who they are. You probably never recognize their names once you hear it. The journalist for the Candidates Forum today, Tia Carol Jones, Citizen newspaper. It's going to be like a format like similar to Meet the Press, but or us, all right? We have Danielle Sanders, Chicago Defender, is going to be here, one of the questioners. Eric Johnson, Chicago Crusader. Linda Walker, Chicago State University. And we're going to have a representative from Medill School of Journalism here today. I'm your moderator. My name is Art Norman, Channel 5 News. I've been doing the news longer than most of you were born. He said, I've been on TV for 39 years at Channel 5, you know? And wow. And it's so nice that Negroes get a chance to be in front of the camera because it wasn't like that all the time. Now, if you think about our history, how did it all begin with Negroes on TV? It began at NBC. You've heard of Branch Rickey, the guy who found Jackie Robinson and put him into Major League Baseball? Well, we had a Branch Rickey broadcasting. His name is Ed Planer, white guy. He was a news director, and he says, I'm going to break the mold. Because when he walked to the newsroom, they were all guys, no ladies doing news in Chicago. Can you believe that? But that was the case in the 1950s. So he said, I'm going out here and hire some people that will make a difference. So he went to Indianapolis and stole a lady by the name of Jane Pauley to come up here and anchor the news at Channel 5. And she sat next to Floyd Calber and Lynn O'Connor and the rest of the gang. And then we said our president of NBC was flying to New York City, and the pilot on the plane was Jim Tillman. And so he said, good afternoon, this is your Captain Jim Tillman. It'll be partly cloudy and mild when you get to Chicago, and don't forget your rain hat. And he said, that guy's got a nice voice. Wonder would he do some TV? So he approached him. You know, you can't do that now, but he was waiting for the pilot, and he talked to Jim, and he says, can you come in and do a little audition? I want you to do some meteorology. He says, well, I don't mean to break it to you bad, but that's what we do. I fly around the clouds. I'm a meteorologist too. He said, oh. So he came in and he had a home run on TV, and he had another show on Channel 11 called Tillman Tempo. These are the people, the pioneers. And the first Black to anchor sports in America was done right here in Chicago. You pray, is he 99 years old? No, he's not 100, but you know him. He was just on TV for March Madness, Greg Gumbel. product of De La Salle High School. These are the people who I stand on the shoulders of at Channel 5. We got a lot of people like that. Carol Simpson, we got her from WBBM Radio. We brought her to Channel 5 to do television. She hit a home run, became an anchor woman at ABC News. But the point is, then we had Linda Yu, Linda Alvarez, Hispanics, whites, blacks, and the number one person that began this trek. They're all hired in the same month, by the way. All hired in the same month at Channel 5. All hired in the same month, and it was a blessing to see all these people. But the man who became the big boss, his name is Rod Prince. He was a writer, producer at Channel 5. He later became the executive producer of NBC Nightly News with Tim Brokaw. Now, broadcasting had a big shot in the arm because there were no pickets at NBC. NAACP, Operation Push, Urban League were not picketing to bring more Negroes into the TV. We had somebody on the inside who said, I'm tired of looking at the newsroom and I don't see the community reflected in our newsroom. He made a difference, and that was Ed Planer. He was a Jackie Robinson kind of guy, but he found these African Americans, and they're strong. And along the way, we picked up Warner Saunders. This is a great time to be talking about broadcasting, but I'm here today and I'm working for this man right here. Handsome guy. By the way, he just celebrated, give him a hand. He just celebrated an anniversary. His wife is right over there. Stand up. Stand up. Go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, 30-something years, right? Come on, take over the microphone.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming. My name is Eli Washington. I am with the Chesterfield Community Council. How we're going to do today's format is we're going to introduce all the presidents. They're going to say a little bit about their organization. Then we're going to have prayer. Then we're going to turn everything over to Mr. Norman. Now we will have Ms. Darlene Tribute. Oh, man. Is it on?
Yes.
Greetings to all of us on this beautiful, wonderful weather day. I mean, I am so grateful the weather is good so that people are able to come out. I'm Darlene Tribute. I'm president of Park Manor Neighbors, 66th Street to 79th State Street to Cottage Grove. As we look at our candidates forum today, it's just a great thing that we have our community groups in a community coalition where we partner together, we work together, we do a lot of things to help one another stay afloat. We know that COVID has caused us all a lot of problems, but at the same token, it's not stopping elections and it's not stopping our political process, which is necessary for us to follow. I'm grateful for this church for allowing us to be here today, in addition to Mr. Norman and all of the journalists that are here and all of you. Thank you again for coming out. And I know as time goes on, people are going to be filtering in. Remember to wear a mask. Remember to social distance. Thank you so much. Let me introduce Ms. Sharon Pincham. She is the president of the West Chesterfield Community Council.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. That's about that. Want to welcome you all here today, here and also on the Zoom link that we have streaming this event. I want to echo what Darlene said. It's very, very important that we continue to be involved in this political process because it's going to go on even during COVID and everything else that we're going through right now. And it affects everything we do every day. So I hope you have your listening, your notes, any questions that you have, and make sure that we are able to reach out to you. And we also would like comments about this event, you know, so that we can plan other events that are beneficial to the community. So thank you very much.
Good job. Good job.
Hello, my name is Paul Knox Jr. Glad to see all of you here. I can't see you smiling, but I know you are. This is something to me that should be going on more often.
Yes.
Definitely. I represent Reunite Chatham, and the name kind of speaks for itself, because things start going bad in the neighborhood, and we said we got to get back together and bring in the people.
That's right.
Deborah Foster Bonner, she led the crew, but we got a good crew. We do Halloween stuff and all of that, but it's all about the community. Thank you.
Praise the Lord, everybody. For those that don't know me, I'm Reverend Dr. Mark A. Robertson. I'm also the president of Chatham-Avalon Park Community Council. Before I start and lead us in prayer, I want to give respect to the pastor of this church, who was very gracious to open up his doors. And please put your hands together for Reverend Brown of St. Mark United Methodist Church. I would also be remiss not to acknowledge a man who loves his community and loves the people, who tries to keep all of us informed on what's going on, who has impeccable organizational skills, who I enjoy working with and enjoy working beside, who actually put this whole thing together to make us well-informed as a community. Please put a warm hand of applause for Mr. Eli Washington. Amen. Let us go in prayer. Heavenly Father, we come before you in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Lord, you said to pray, our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Father, we ask right now in your great name to let your power and your presence fill this place right now. Lord, we know that you are a God of order and you are decent and in order in all that you do, and you are not a God of confusion. So, Father, we ask as this forum goes forth, that, Lord, there'll be no disruptions, no disturbances, no interruptions. Father, let your power rest right now. Lord, I ask that you bless those that have come, the people that are gathered together right now, who are conscious and concerned about our city, about our communities and our blocks, who are concerned about economic development, high interest rates on school loans, crime, and policing, oh God. Father, have your way. Encourage us today as we move forward in this forum, oh God. Lord, allow us and teach us, Father, to be able to work together, to be able to take back our communities, to take back our blocks, and to love our neighbors as ourselves. Now, Lord, I also ask that you bless these candidates that are here today, oh God. Let them speak with purpose, power, and with purpose, oh God. Lord, have your way in their lives, Father, in the name of Jesus. And Lord, as they debate, let them debate on the issues, oh God, being specific on how to reduce crime, better policing, economic development, and all the things that plague us. And Father, as they debate, we ask that they don't belittle, degrade, or bring reproach against their opponents or their families. Now, Lord God, as we close in prayer, no matter what we see, no matter what we hear, no matter what we believe or don't believe, God, you are still in control. And Father, in the name of Jesus, that whoever is elected by the people, that we will always know that the government rests upon your shoulders. And we give you the glory, we give you the honor and the praise, and let the people of God say, amen.
What church is that now? I also want to recognize a good friend and a supporter in the audience, Mr. Mays Jackson. Thank you for coming, Mays. Let me just, first of all, if you're looking at this on Facebook, I mean, not Facebook, if you're streaming this, please share it on Facebook. Share it as much as you can. Let everybody see. We know that there's a lot of people who are at home looking at it, so please share this, this dynamic presentation. How we're going to do it, Mr. Norman is going to come up and he's going to introduce Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore is going to give his presentation and then they'll be open for questions. We do have a timekeeper, but for this case, it might not be an issue until the congressional candidates come in. So right now, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Art Norman.
If you're just walking in, my name is Art Norman, Channel 5 News. I've been there a long time. 39 years at Channel 5. I'm the former president, Chicago president of the National Association of Black Journalists. When we put this wonderful organization together, NABJ, there may be, when we had a meeting, and all the meetings were back then at NBC, but there may have been 20 members. Now, the press corps is made up of over 700 African Americans in the media, working at ABC, CBS, NBC, GN, Fox, Chicago Defender, Chicago Tribune, Citizen, all over the place. WGCI, V103, we're all of VON, the voice. Mays, you're the man. But we are all over the place. And what we do, we try to help young people get into the media. We tell them, go small and become big. If you think about it, when I started my career, I was in Baltimore, Maryland, sitting next to Oprah Winfrey. We were both reporters from small towns. And man, she loved telling stories about people in the community. And she did a wonderful job. And who would have thunk that a lady who was making $18,000 a year is now a billionaire? Oh my gosh, this is great. This is great. So let me give you some of the rules of the road that we're going to have. No political campaign material will be circulated inside the forum. So if you're giving stuff out, stop it. We're not going to call you out. Just stop it. All campaign political materials will be on display outside of this forum. So we don't want to confuse anybody who's coming in. The audience is to be respectful, refrain from executive remembrance for or against a specific candidates. No negativity. No Donald Trump isms. Not in this house. Each candidate will have 2 minutes opening presentation. Remarks should be focused on the challenges of the office and remedies. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to questions from a panel or journalists and community members. Note, many questions will come from journalists, and we talk about that. Those are the people with the journalistic credentials who we're asking to be part of the panel. All questions from the candidate and the audience will be written down and given to a representative from one of our facilitators, and I will read your question. We're not going to have any questions from the audience unless it's from the press corps here, the African American press corps. I'm going to point that out. Disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. Immediate removal from the forum. You don't want to get thrown out of here. This is a church. We've got to be respectful of the house of God. And I just want you to give you some notes about, I moderated lots of debates for mayor, different offices, state's attorney. And one of the things that those people who don't show up for these things lose in the long run. I would go to a moderator at the University of Chicago. I would moderate a debate. And Lori Lightfoot was always there on time. Toni Preckwinkle didn't come all the time. She would every once in a while. But on the day of the vote, no one, Mays, you didn't figure that out. Maybe you did. Everybody voted for Lori Lightfoot. I mean, Toni Preckwinkle didn't win a single precinct in this town. But I want you to bring a young man up here. Come on up here. You and I are going to talk together. You're running for the Secretary of State's position. I want you to give me 2 minutes of tell everybody your name, where you're from, where did you grow up, what makes you tick, and where do you like to eat soul food?
First of all, my name is David Moore, and thank you all for coming out.
Thank you.
I grew up in a Robert Taylor home. Chicago was up until I was 11 years old, and then I moved to the Inglewood community. That's when I first got involved in serving in the community. My uncle was an assistant precinct captain, and he would pay me $5 to run up and down the street, putting literature in people's mailboxes. And I have to tell you, I didn't care anything about any politics. I just wanted that $5 to get some Boston baked beans and Chico sticks with. But it was when I turned 13, that same uncle took me to the Roberts Motel on 63rd and King Drive at a breakfast. And there I met a state senator by the name of Harold Washington, who was running for Congress. And he talked about the importance of young people being involved in their community. And at that point, that $5 no longer became important to me, but serving in my community is what became important to me. So I had been doing that, just serving, never wanted to be an elected official. I told people, it's two people I keep my eyes on, anybody saying they want to be a preacher and anybody saying they want to be an elected official, because it's not something you run to, it's something you run from. It's a calling on your life. So when I got that calling to run, after saying no so long, I accepted. So I ran for alderman of the 17th Ward, and in running for the alderman of the 17th Ward, I've been able to bring economic development to the 17th Ward. I've been able to rename Lakeshore Drive, DuSable Drive. I've been able to make sure we got the first Black contractor to do an airside deal at O'Hare Airport for cargo. I got the first Black woman to do a development deal for Walgreens. All of this because I stood up when others would say yes, I said yes. When others wouldn't say no, I said no. And so I'm looking to run for Secretary of State because this office is very critical. Next to the governor's office, this is the most important office in the state of Illinois. And there are issues that we can build on and enhance at the Secretary of State's office. I'm the only one in this race that back in 1997 circulated petitions for Secretary White to get elected and to get on the ballot. The reason why is that the office was marred in corruption and scandal. And so I wanted to make sure that we have someone in that seat that is ethical and that can bring the services to the community. One of the main service and focus point I want to do, you'll hear me talk about the business of the Secretary of State, the responsibility, and also the service of the Secretary of State. It's important, you all, that this seat remain a servant seat. It cannot go back to being a political seat. I am not looking at it as a stepping stone. It will be my last stop. I am not trying to be the senator or the governor like my other candidates. That way I can just focus on serving you. I want to make sure that it's transparent. It's more than just driver services. There are 20 different departments, 4,000 jobs within the Secretary of State's office. I want to make sure there's transparency and that there's equity in hiring, equity in contracting, and equity in providing services across this state. Then when I talk about the business of the Secretary of State, I have a dual degree in accounting and operations management from West Illinois University. You need somebody that's a fiscal manager. I want to make sure that we're keeping those fees down like I did in corporate America. I want to make sure that we're running an effective operation like I did in corporate America, providing services to you. I am the first one in this race to say, the Secretary of State, many people don't know as the state librarian. I want to make sure at the libraries, there are satellite offices where you can just quickly renew your sticker, quickly renew your driver's license, things that are close to you. And what's important, I was the only one in this race to say that I'm gonna give discounts to seniors. Right now, the Secretary of State's office does not give discounts to seniors. They give discounts to veterans as they should, people with disability as they should, but I'm going to make sure that we give discounts to seniors. Also, I want to make sure that we're pushing organ donation in our community, you all. It's important because when we look at all these dialysis centers throughout, even living donors, we can save lives. We just did a story on Harold Baines, a beloved baseball player from Chicago who is still living now because someone donated. And we have to get out of that stigma that we do not donate, and we need to begin to donate. And so I also want to make sure, and I was the first one again in this race to say, and I'm glad my opponents are taking it, that of the 122 driving facilities, I'm going to create 122 youth engagement offices throughout this state so that our young people can have year-round interns teaching them civic responsibility and engaging them in the process. Right now, when you turn 16, you get a driver's license, but you can't register to vote. I'm committed to on their 18th birthday, they get a birthday card from me saying you're automatically registered to vote. And we're going to give them an opt-out option instead of opt-in so that they can be on the rolls for voting. And so I want you all to look at my record. It's easy to say what you're going to do when you get in office. Everybody in this race got a track record. Go look to see what I've been doing as alderman. And my record and my resume will stand up to anyone's every day of the week. And so I tell you, Illinois does not deserve anything less. Illinois deserves more, David Moore, for Secretary of State. And I hope I can earn your support.
Boy, you're a self-starter. Wow. So what makes you tick? Why you want to give back to the community so much? I mean, these people want to know, what makes you tick?
What makes me tick is the least of those.
Okay.
So it goes back to when I say this thing is a calling. When I got that call, God always told me, whatever you do, always take care of the least of us. And the least of us, I tell you all, are not always poor people as people think. It's people just don't even have access to government. We got some millionaires that can't even get contracts, you all, to help hire people. And so me making sure that people who normally don't have access, get access, the vulnerable, fighting for those that cannot fight for themselves, that's what makes me tick.
I think about all the work that Jesse White has done in the Secretary of State's office, and you come with aldermanic fiscal background. Can you do a better job? He was amazing. He didn't want to run for higher office like Jim Edgar, like George Ryan. They use it as a stepping stone for governor. You sure you don't want to run for governor?
I'm positive I don't want to run for governor. And your question is, would I do a better job? Yes. And the reason why is because I'm standing on his shoulders. And I'm standing on the shoulders of Harold Washington. And when you're standing on somebody's shoulders, you got to look further and you got to look higher. You have to do better. And so I have the skill set to even do better.
I thank you very much. And you and I were hanging out together at the Chicago Music Awards, where we gave out awards to all the best musicians in the city of Chicago, the Chicago Music Awards. And he was there hanging out with Jesse White and the Jesse White Tumblers. So is he endorsing you?
He has not endorsed me.
Not yet.
He has not endorsed me.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We're going to, Eli, come on up here. We're going to do some bookkeeping. We're trying to get the format together. He's giving out cards. You can ask questions.
Right. Right now, we want to turn it over to the journalists if they had any questions for Mr. Moore.
Good afternoon, Alderman Moore.
Good afternoon.
In 2016, Governor Bruce Rauner closed all 4 testing emissions facilities in Chicago, forcing drivers to drive over 12 miles to suburbs just to get their vehicles tested for emissions before they can renew their driver's license plates. This is especially a problem for lower income residents on the south and the west sides of this city. They struggle to make that trip with considering the high cost of gas. Although this is a policy issue in the Illinois Assembly, struggling residents need an advocate to challenge our current legislator to address this current problem. What are your plans as a candidate for Secretary of State to do this?
Absolutely. When you hear me talk about the responsibility of the Secretary of State, and when you ask me, will I even be better than Secretary White, it's because that seat is a voice. And we got to be able to advocate and use our voice in that seat, even when sometimes it's challenging even members of your own party. And so right now, I believe the State Senator Pete Marwick has already put out legislation that I think has passed. Representative Pete Marwick has already passed the House to push making sure that we bring more facilities to Chicago, which I totally support. If it's not done by the time I get in office, if the Senate doesn't pass it and the governor doesn't sign it, I'm going to make sure I'm an advocate for it so that we have more facilities, because it's something that I struggle with, having to drive all the way out to the south suburbs to get my emissions test done. Absolutely.
Another question from one of our journalists. She will introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Danielle Sanders from the Chicago Defender. During the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly at Secretary of State driving facilities, we saw people in line for hours. What are you going to do if elected to modernize the process and bring more services online?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So you already told, so two things you already, it's going to be, we're going to modernize the office. We're going to bring it into the 21st century. Right now, that Secretary of State system is on a mainframe system, and I'm going to make sure that we're doing cloud computing to speed things up.
What
But
does
all-
cloud computing mean?
Cloud computing allows you to put your information out in the cloud where it's quicker, more safer,
So
and
anybody here could just go up and get information?
not anybody here. No,
Okay.
it's protected, just like the bank's information are
Oh,
protected.
okay.
Absolutely. And so there's two things to that. Yes, modernization definitely needed in the Secretary of State's office. But you already heard me mention, because my mama, you talk about some modernization using apps. She like, get out of here. I'm going up there. That's why I talked about bringing those services closer and using the libraries as satellite offices that are closer to you.
Yes.
But then also, I'm the first one in this race to talk about digital license plates. Right now, California, Arizona, and Michigan are using digital license plates.
What does that mean? It sounds complicated.
Absolutely not at all. And so when you drive, and the best way I can tell you, I can show you through the phone, or if you've been behind a CTA bus and you see that light, light flashing number 9 on a CTA bus, that's your license plate. And so you have your license plate number, but also at the bottom, there's digital readout. So if your car is stolen during these carjackings, it's a safety issue. The reason why they're not prosecuting people is because they're not catching them in the car. Right now, what they have is called license plate readers. And that's going back to the car that's stolen, which is your car. That's
Right.
not helping you. But the digital license plates, if somebody carjacked my car right now, I get on the phone or somebody else's phone's activated and it's going to say stolen. Therefore, the people on the street can call, or the police can see and pull that person and apprehend
Wow.
them. And what it also does is deter carjackers from taking those cars, because they know that they'll get caught quickly. And so with that, you can, please, absolutely.
Wow.
And so with that, to your question, you can register through the digital license plate. You can register your sticker. You can re-register your plate for your sticker and for your registration on your car. And so these are the things that would be more efficient for the people who want to use technology, but for the ones that don't, like a lot of my seniors, that's why I'm creating those satellite offices at the library. So in other words, you have more options.
Yes. Good job.
All righty, we have a couple of questions from the audience. A couple of them are similar. Do you support the right of undocumented immigrants to vote in municipal elections?
The Constitution said that if you're not a citizen of the United States, you can't vote. That's what the Constitution says, and I support the Constitution of the United States.
Okay.
Secretary of State, 2023 budget, number of contracts to Black companies. You're not in that office, but do you know the answer to
I
that?
didn't hear the question.
How many Black companies got contracts from the state?
I'm not privy to that information, but the budget is a $463 million budget, but the revenue from that the Secretary of State creates is a $2 billion in revenue that comes from the Secretary of State, of which 1.2 billion of that go towards roads construction. And that's where my voice is going to come in, because I want to know who's working on those roads. When I'm driving up and down from Pontiac to Danville, everywhere, if I don't see people that look like us on those roads, then you're going to have an advocate and be that voice. If I don't see those contracts, and just like in the city and everywhere else, we know contracts are low. Just like I've been an advocate to making sure that we get contracts and high percentage of those contracts, I'll make sure I'm doing that at the Secretary of State's office as well.
Okay, kind of similar. Please give examples of how you would expand contract opportunities for Black contractors. Would you support more mobile offices to provide services to the community?
Absolutely. Mobile services, absolutely. We do that now and push for that now.
What is mobile services?
Mobile services is bringing your mobile facility out to communities for different events, bringing them to schools where people may not be able to, just get out and drive to any facility, and it'll be close to their home. So you're driving and bringing the facility right to them. And right now, it's easy to say what you're going to do. Let me tell you what I've done. I'm an alderman in the 17th ward. Everybody don't go to my community, come to my community meetings. Now, I won't tell you how many flyers I put out or anything.
Yeah.
So you know what I did? And I was the first one ever alderman to do it. I do what I call alderman on the block. I make sure I set up in every precinct, at least once a month during the summer, every precinct, so that I bring my services out to the people. And that's what you call mobile assistance to the community.
Gotcha.
Do you support reparations for Black people?
Absolutely.
What do you mean? Absolutely. I mean,
Do I support, not only do I support reparations, I've voted on it in the city council. We've committed, we've got a committee right now, a subcommittee on
Sure.
reparations, which we're fighting, myself and Alderman Stephanie Coleman, to get funded so that the mayor can fund it. And so if you see us fighting and stopping other things, then don't get mad at us, because we're trying to fight for that funding so that we can make sure this committee is effective and have money so that we can push towards this, because there's no way Evanston should have led Chicago on this issue.
in the city of Evanston, the lawmakers up there, members of the aldermanic and the mayor's office, they want to take reparations money from the sale of marijuana and start giving it to people who were displaced, so that your children or your children's children can go to college free of charge. What do you think of that?
I think they should be able to. I support it. I was, as a matter of fact, when it comes to the marijuana issue, I was one of the lone voices with a couple of others that tried to stop it until we had Black ownership there, so that
Do we have enough now?
we don't have any. We don't have any.
Wait a minute, zero?
Zero. If they would have listened to me and held it up, we would have had it.
Wow.
Yep. And the final question is, mental health is a growing issue in the state and in the city. The facilities have been closed. What will you do? I'm not sure if that's kind of in your scope still.
Same thing. I'm a part of the Progressive Caucus in the city of Chicago right now. And the whole Progressive Caucus, we continue to push for that. We've gotten more funding, and we're continuing to push to the mayor to open more facilities. But I will tell you all this to help us get over that hump. It's the idea that people are not using the facilities that are open. And so we need the community help, so that when people, we can overload some of the facilities that are underutilized, because that's her argument. And so until we get and push more for facilities to be open, we don't want to have taxpayers' money wasted saying we open up a facility and no one is using it. But I think we need to make sure we have organizations and more people that's available, if not a major facility, but at least psychiatrists and psychologists available at different facilities where people can be able to access them quickly.
And one lady just brought this to me, disassociate the Black civil rights movement from the LGBT movement. And that was basically just a comment more than anything else.
LGBTQ, yes.
Okay.
Restate that question so I can clearly hear.
It's really more of a statement more than anything else. Disassociate the Black civil rights movement from the LGBT movement.
What I do believe in that we should have is American descendants of slaves. We should have that category, because when Mayor Washington created that we have MBEs, it was specifically because African Americans wasn't getting contracts. Now everybody is an MBE. And so our numbers are getting reduced to the point where we're sometimes only getting 1% or 2% of the contract. So I do support us being recognized as American descendants of slaves, so that we can have our own category, so that we can make sure that we're getting our fair share.
I think about one of the great civil rights leaders of our time, Bayard Rustin. He was the architect of the Dr. King's movement, and he was openly gay. What do you think about gays?
What do you think about gays? What do you think about gays?
No.
They hold a lot of weight. They hold a lot of weight.
I'm a child of God.
All right.
I'm raised in the church. I'm a deacon. I support people. I support any human being, and human being has the right to live a good life. And that's what I support.
Okay.
And if you can give your final statement, Alderman Moore, and then we're going to go on to the congressional candidates.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Again, I appreciate those questions. I thank you all for coming out. We are at a point right now in our government where nobody is reaching back and lifting us up. Let me tell you that nobody is giving us anything. And when we as people reach back and give other people stuff before we give our people things, that's a problem. And so I was out on the street as I do, I don't go on Facebook Live on that one, when I'm talking to the guys on the street trying to get them jobs. And one of them says something so profound, and I have to share his story. He said, David, he said, you drank the Kool-Aid. He said, you did everything they told you to do. You stayed in school. You didn't get on, you didn't smoke no weed. You didn't sell drugs with us. You went to church, you went to college, you graduated.
Wow.
You did all those things. But when you ran for alderman, none of them was with you. We stood with you. We were out here circulating petitions for you. They said, now the person you've been telling us to vote for since 1997 is not even supporting you. They said, if you're supposed to be the best of us and they're not helping you, I don't have a snowball's chance in hell. I told them, I said, the same people that you bless may not be the people that bless you back. The thing is, we have to reach back and help our young people.
Yes.
We have to make sure that they are elevated. And this Secretary of State's office, especially the voice of it, is very critical to that. We have an opportunity that may not come in a lifetime again. There's nobody at the state level right now that speak up for us without having to check in with somebody else. I don't have to check in.
What do you mean by
with
that? What do you mean by that?
Everybody has to check in with somebody.
Okay.
Whether they're tied, whether it's to Durbin, whether it's to the governor or anything like that for some particular reason. But I do not, and that's why I've been able to be effective as
Wow.
a city councilman, and I will still be effective as the Secretary of State because I will have that voice to do so. And so make sure you all don't just vote for me if you decide to vote for me. Make sure you spread the word and get it out because your child probably won't be an instant millionaire, can drop $2 million. Your child may not get a legislative scholarship, which they cut out to have a 4-year scholarship. They got to get loans. Nobody's just going to pick them and just appoint them to a city position that he have to run for to lose and then hopefully win. We won't get those opportunities. And so you have to have somebody there to make sure that we're elevating our community, but at the same time, being a servant to the entire state of Illinois. Yeah, I'm unapologetically Black, and I tell people when Black people win, everybody benefits.
Okay.
Everybody benefits.
Okay.
And so I want to be your next Secretary of State. I hope I can earn your support, any volunteer that you give and any money that you can donate. Because as I told you before, Illinois does not deserve anything less. Illinois deserves more. David Moore. Thank you.
So let me ask you this. Before you go.
We got one more from
hypothetically.
the Crusader, one final one.
All right, one more question from the Crusader.
Thank you, Mr. Washington. Eric Johnson of the Chicago Crusader. In your years, Alderman Moore, as Alderman of the 17th Ward, how has your experience prepared you for the position of Secretary of State? Can you give me some details?
Absolutely. First and foremost, as an alderman, the main people you have to listen to is not the mayor, and in the case of the Secretary of State, not the governor. You have to listen to the people because they're going to those facilities every day to serve. And as an alderman, we get everything from whether you're got an issue with Congress to whether you got the issue with the dog catcher. We get all issues. And as an alderman, I've handled all of those issues. And as Secretary of State, I'll be able to handle those issues, make sure I'm listening to the constituents and making sure I'm providing the services to those constituents. At the end of the day, that Secretary of State's office is a service-driven office. And there's no better public servant in this Secretary of State race than I am.
Thank you, Alderman Moore.
Thank you so much.
I got one question. If hypothetically you win the election,
It won't be hypothetically, I'm gonna win.
okay,
When I win,
okay. How's that gonna work? You're gonna be Secretary of State and Alderman?
no, you can't hold
Okay.
both positions. After the November general election, and when I win, and just before January, I have to give up my aldermanic seat.
Okay, just wanted to get that clear. Thank you very much. Nice job.
Thank
Keep
you
up
so
the good
much.
work.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
You make us proud. You make us proud. Eli.
Yes, sir. Now I want to call up the candidates for the office of Congress of the 1st Congressional District. Is Jackie Collins in the house? Okay. Cassandra Goodwin. Jonathan Jackson. Have a seat at the front, please. Michael Thompson Jr. at the front. Jamal Cole. Oh, I didn't even see you come in there. Chris Butler. And Marcus Lewis.
Hey, Jamal, what you got?
We got some candidates coming in. They're going from one event to another. There are a lot of things like this going on today. So just sit back and relax. You're going to hear some good conversation. And we need your questions. Eli's walking around with a piece of paper just asking you for your question. Please give it to him.
Oh. All right. While they're getting set up, Jackie Collins is in the parking lot, I was told, as well as Chris Butler. They're parking, so they'll be in momentarily. But at this time, I do want to recognize a candidate for the assessor, Miss Carrie Steele. Now, are there any other candidates for any other offices for Secretary of State or Congress that's in the House? All right, very good. I'll say other than Congress. And we also want to acknowledge the president of Chattanooga Business Association and one of our co-sponsors, Ms. Melinda Kelly. So you guys can have a seat. We're gonna get started in about 2 minutes. Pass out more cards for you.
While we're getting set up for the next group of elected officials to speak with you, because everything is fluid today. Sydney Moore, walk this way. Sydney Moore, where'd he go? Did he run out of here? Come here. Come here. Sydney Moore is trying to be everywhere at the same time. Sydney Moore is also a candidate for Secretary of State, and he's got to be somewhere real soon. So y'all just wait a minute, okay? All right. Tell us who you are and why you're running for Secretary of State.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sydney Moore, and I'm running for Secretary of State. It's quite simple. I have a great concern and love for the people of Illinois, particularly the people that I serve in my community. For the past 50, 60 years, I've been working in the community.
Which community did you grow up in? Where are you from?
Actually, I lived on the west side of Chicago and on the south side of Chicago, Robert Taylor homes.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir. Now, I'm currently living in Homewood, Illinois right now at this time.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
So, yeah, this
Why
is
do you want to
something
be
I'm very
Secretary of
passionate.
State?
This is
Why do you
something I'm
wanna
very
be-
passionate about. This is something I've been thinking about for over 8 years. And since Jesse is retiring, he did a good job, as we all know. And I'm not here to change anything, but to enhance it, make it a lot better. This is my first time actually publicly speaking, but
Boy, you jumped in right away, didn't you?
but yeah. well, no,
You
I'm
almost
here.
walked out of here.
I know, I got another engagement.
I know. No, you
Enjoy,
do.
Yeah, so,
Keep up the good work.
yeah, but I'm here to serve you. I'm asking for your vote as well. And please forgive me for my little bit
Keep the
nervous.
microphone close
Yeah,
to your mouth.
A little bit nervous because I've done things, but not on this particular format as far as speaking live, but I have done a lot of things in the community. Currently, I've been.
What will you do as Secretary of State for the Black community?
Well, actually, the Black community is my first and foremost concern. We know that there's a lot of things happening in the Black community as far as driver license issues, dealing with particularly owing debt to the city. I want to make sure that that doesn't happen. Suspend the driver license for owing a debt. Also, there's so many things that ails our
Anything
community.
for senior citizens?
Oh, definitely. I want to
Tell me about it.
Definitely. I want to make sure that senior citizens continue to have the best service first and foremost in our community. I want to also make sure that we mobilize some of these mobile units, get them out there and working, because actually they're sitting there right now. Nothing's been done with them. We want to actually mobilize those vehicles and get them out there working for the people.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Good job. I know you got to run.
Yeah, I do. I have to run.
Art Norman's my
But
name.
again,
Thank you very
I know,
much.
Yeah, Steve Javor told me a lot about you. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. We are now, Eli, you got the
Yes, sir.
microphone.
We also have Karen Norrington Reeves. She's also a candidate for Congress. Would you come forth?
Oh, good.
Jackie Collins has arrived. Would you come forth? I also want to recognize, right, you're in the second group. We also want to recognize Precious Brady Davis. She's a candidate for Water Reclamation District. Precious, where are you? We also want to recognize a candidate for sheriff, LaToya Ruffin. Thank you. And we're going to get started in about 2 minutes.
We just want to say thank you for being here today. This is a forum, a community forum. Many of you are used to that. You're used to this format. And we just want to start over here on the far right and ask people to stand up, introduce themselves, say their name, give you their website. Why do you want to be an elected official? Stand up.
Well, thank you so much. Greetings, everybody. My name is Pastor Chris Butler. I am the senior leader at Chicago Embassy Church Network, and I'm also a candidate, obviously, for the 1st District for Congress. I want to go to Congress because I believe as a father, as a husband, as somebody who was raised by working class families, that we need somebody in Congress who is going to focus 100% on making everyday life better for everyday people. And I'm going to go to Congress and work together with anybody who wants to help do that and challenge anybody who's going to stand in the way of that. So that's my focus. I was raised, like I said, by a postal worker and a clerical worker. I pastor a small family church. I'm steeped in family issues, and I want to go to Congress and work for families.
Good job, good job, good job. We just want to let everybody know we've got a group of journalists over there from the Citizen newspaper, Chicago Defender, Crusader, and Chicago State University. Who's got the first question, Eli? I'll get them all first. Okay. Thank you very much for being here. Hi.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen Norrington Reeves, and I'm a candidate for Congress for Illinois' historic 1st Congressional District. I am standing here in the spot that I answered the altar call with my 4-month-old baby in my arms when I joined this church. And that was 17 years ago. And this church, this is my home church. And so 17 years have passed, and I have watched our community. I'm a 3rd-generation Chicagoan and a 20-year resident of Chatham. And I've watched our community shift and change. It went from a place that was the suburbs and the city for me. This was the destination community for so many middle-class African Americans. And now, from my home, a block away from the Dan Ryan, I hear gunfire on a regular basis, multiple times a week. Our community has changed, and it's changed for a number of reasons, most of which are rooted in economic opportunity and the lack thereof. And so for the past decade, I have dedicated myself to creating economic opportunity for Black and brown folks in the city of Chicago and Cook County, leading the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership. In over a decade, I've helped to place more than 100,000 people in quality, good-paying jobs, many of them union jobs, jobs with career pathways that help to create economic prosperity and economic opportunity for our people. And so when I think about why am I running for Congress, I'm running for Congress because we need more people in Congress with lived experience and with deep knowledge of policy and policy making. And so I actually have that knowledge and that experience now. I'm a 30-year public servant, not a politician, a 30-year public servant. I started off in public education, went into public health law, went into public utility consumer regulation, and for the last 12 years plus, working in workforce development. And so I'm asking for your vote. You can find out more about me and my experience at votekaren.com. But the reasons that I just laid out are the very reasons that Congressman Bobby Rush has endorsed me to succeed him in this seat. So I thank you and I welcome your vote on June 28th.
All right, you ready for all these people to ask you some questions?
I got this.
You got this, huh?
Thank you.
You're next.
Yes, sir.
Introduce yourself.
Yes, sir. Can everybody hear me? I'm gonna go ahead and sound off. My name is Michael Thompson. I'm a candidate for United States Congress here in the 1st District of Illinois.
Michael,
And-
right?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Michael
go ahead.
Thompson.
Go ahead.
And the real reason why I'm running is because I believe the two most pressing issues in our community are a lack of jobs and violent crime. And I believe the best deterrent to violent crime is a job in and of itself. Similar to Ms. Reeves, I've worked in workforce development, and one thing that I always say, you can't get a job, you can't interview, you can't write a resume, you can't write a resume, you can't write a sentence, you can't write a sentence if you don't appreciate education.
Wow.
And it's hard to appreciate
Yes, it is.
education if you're going through social emotional trauma stemming from childhood experiences. As an elected official, I view my role as someone who brings those resources to the table so that way champions in the community at every phase I just articulated can have the resources they need to serve their populations. Thank you all for allowing me to be here.
So what are you doing? What do you think about all these young African Americans who are 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, carjacking cars at gas stations with guns? What do you think about that?
Are we answering questions now?
No, I'm throwing that out there because I have the
What I'll
privilege.
say is, I
moderator.
used to work in alternative education. And what I found was my young people that were homeless, that were committing crimes, that were justice involved, when you put opportunities in front of them,
Yeah.
more often than not, they'll make better decisions.
Wow.
It's
Okay.
about having that opportunity being put in front of them. And that's what I hope to do.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Young lady,
Yes, sir.
give me the microphone.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Attorney Cassandra Goodrum, and I am your candidate for the 1st Congressional District. I am a lifelong resident of the South Side. I grew up in South Shore. I raised my family in Chatham, literally 2 blocks from here at 81st and Champlain.
Wow.
3 children. My son just passed the bar in New York, so I'm thrilled about that.
All
But he
right.
grew up right here. He went to public schools right here. I am an attorney now. I've been working at Chicago State University for the past 10 years. And prior to that, I had practiced where I did family law as well as Social Security disability, where I was trying to help people get their benefits. And following, before that, I was a Cook County State's attorney. So I have been giving back to my community the entire time I have been here living. But I, like all of these people up here, have noticed that there has been a change and that we can do better. I stepped out in December of last year because I know we need a change in our community. I am not a politician, but I know I have the skills to bring the necessary resources back to our community to get the programs that we have all talked about already.
Yes.
To bring those programs back to our community. But it's not just the programs, it's the economics. How many of you all have been to community meetings where you talk about violence? I know all you have because everybody here is engaged. Everybody is engaged. And what is the piece that's missing? It's always the economic piece. We know we need jobs for our children. We know we need jobs for the people who are getting out of jail. We know we need a stable community with stable housing, equitable, sustainably built housing that is affordable. We know the answers, but we also know the answer is bringing back those resources. And some of those resources are in Washington, D.C. And as your legislator, I will be the one to bring them back to you. I told you I work with, oh, I guess they want me to stop. You can reach me at Goodrum for Congress. That's F-O-R Congress, Goodrum for Congress, G-O-O-D-R-U-M. So go with Goodrum. Thank you.
Okay. You're gonna bring some jobs for our young people.
Absolutely.
So they,
Absolutely.
devil's mind is the,
It's not just about bringing the jobs. We also have to provide them with the opportunity
Gotcha.
and the adequate education.
these
told
young
you-
people have a lot of questions for you.
I know they do because I teach them at Chicago State and I know we have failed them. So I know we're going to do
No,
better.
not all of them. I
Not
mean,
all of them.
You got a lot of people from Chicago State doing
Oh,
very well.
I love my people at Chicago State. That's why I'm here. Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Professor, get the microphone. This is, who's your daddy? Who your daddy is?
Reverend Jesse Jackson.
All right, God bless you, Professor.
Honored to be here. My name is Jonathan Jackson, candidate for Congress in the 1st Congressional District. I have been in a life of private business and public service my entire lifetime. Born and raised in the South Shore area where I live and reside today. Went to Whitney Young High School on what is now the West Loop, but it was the West Side then. It's transformed itself. Went to Northwestern University for business school. One of the reasons I chose an occupation of business is because I've always been interested in capital formation. How do you create jobs? How do you expand economic opportunity? 5 out of 6 jobs in the US economy is in private sector. It's not in government. Private sector has to build these jobs out. I have started businesses in Singular Wireless, AT&T stores over here on the South Side. I've done residential development. And for that, I'm very thankful because I've seen the process from the outside in. Now, at this point in my life, I want to be on the inside so I can fix what's wrong. I know what's wrong. I filled out those minority business paperworks. I've seen the language that's so twisted and convoluted. People in our legislature have done great work. They've legislated us in. Then bureaucrats get into office and regulate us out. We can fix that. I also want to deal with the crime that's happening in our community. Brother Art, you mentioned the fact about the children and carjacking. I want to be a defender for the family and defender for the children. A crime has been committed against these children. Our schools have been underfunded now for almost 50 years. We should see these parks back opened. I think a part of my platform on reducing gun violence, I don't like to think of the negative, but in the positive. The other side of the gun violence is where are the opportunities, where's the hope, where are the things for children in development? We should be talking about summer programs for $100 million to employ 50,000 students this summer in the city of Chicago to get them off of the street to have productive things to do. The last thing I would tell you is I believe in public safety, and that's just not simply more police overtime. When we call the police, we should respect them. They should not have their life in danger, and ours should not be taken away when we call them. But we can expand public safety by giving these children greater opportunity and bringing economics back into the fold.
You're going to bring some jobs to the city of Chicago.
Yes, and to the region. We are a donor to the federal government. More Illinois taxes go out to the federal government than come in. We should be fighting for every dollar and making sure that when federal money is spent here, it's not being used in a discriminatory manner, as you can see in transit and housing issues.
Thank you, Professor. Why do we call you Professor? Tell us, sir.
I taught at Chicago State University, and I was doing WVON radio program, a give back just so I can educate our community. Those that couldn't attend college, I still have an obligation to teach them. I taught at City College, at Community College at Kennedy King, and served on the Illinois Community College Board.
Good job, Professor. Thank you. Thank you. Young man, Cole.
Yeah. How you guys doing? My name is Jamal Cole. I'm a candidate for U.S. Congress in the 1st District. I was talking to a kid at Cole Park the other day. He was sleeping underneath the slide and he ain't have no shoes on. And I said, why are you sleeping on the slide? What's going on? He said, I just got out of county. I was like, oh man, they just let you out with no shoes? He said, yeah. I said, okay. I was like, well, what they get you for? They arrested a lot of kids now. What they get you for? He said, I stole a car. I said, man, we've been hearing about y'all on the news. Y'all been stealing. I said, well, what kind of cars you steal? He said, man, I stole a Mustang. I said, oh, I said, cool, man, I've been wanting one of those. I was like, how does a 14-year-old kid go about stealing a Mustang? He was like, it's easy, Jamal, easy. I just broke the window. I took off the ignition cap. I saw the blue wire and the red wire. I twisted those beads together and it started. Wow. I looked down and said, man, you sound like a Microsoft engineer right now, man. He said, really? I said, yeah. He said, you think I could do it? I said, yes. So I was like, man, I took him to the store to get some shoes. He wanted some Jordans. And I gave him $50. He said, drop me off at McDonald's. I said, what, you hungry? He said, no, I want to use the Wi-Fi. Listen, I talked to a kid the other day. I said, what you do this weekend? He said, I had a good weekend, Jamal. I ate some good food. I got to travel. I got to dance a little bit. I said, what, y'all have a backyard barbecue? He said, oh, no, I just went to Leaks on 79th Street. It's the best funeral I've ever been to. The kids that I work with are in 9th grade and been at 15 funerals. My name is Jamal Cole, and I show up for people. I'm the founder of My Block, My Hood, My City. I started it out of Cook County Jail. Now it's one of the most impactful nonprofit organizations in the state. Wow. I show up for seniors. 8,000 seniors reached out to my organization from 12 different states. We were able to connect them to primary healthcare physicians, ship PPE, do contact tracing. I did all of this showing up without running for office. Imagine what I'm going to do when I'm in the United States Congress. Thank you.
Are you going to start in the schools? Where are you going to start getting these young people involved? Good job with the young man.
Appreciate that. But for sure, we're going to start in the jails. In the Audi home,
jails.
in the jail. You got to start there, and that's where I started my program in the jail, the Cook County Jail, the Audi home, the juvenile detention facility,
Sure.
the alternative optional schools, charter schools, traditional public schools. Right now, we work with 150 students from 10 different schools, and we have a 36 school waiting list. My nonprofit's not big enough.
Yeah.
That's a federal. We need a partner in the federal government to help out nonprofits, because right now we put our own money up to start programs. That's not fair, man.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job, young man. And the young lady that's coming up, Senator Collins, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
She's
Hello,
an
everyone.
Emmy Award-winning producer and editor
At CBS News.
CBS.
Prior
And she's
to-
a state senator too.
Well, now I
Great
am. Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I am State Senator Jacqueline Collins. And let me just say, for all the issues confronting the 1st Congressional District, I am the only one with a legislative record that impacting those issues. I have a record. I'm not speaking of rhetoric. What I'm offering you, it is not a record, but a legislative record of accomplishment. I have entitled my campaign Jackie for Justice. I have labeled that because my campaign is rooted in economic, social, and racial justice. I'm running because of the urgency of now. We are being confronted with the suppression of voting rights, the rise of white supremacy, and the attack on the reproductive rights of our women. I'm running for Congress to ensure to renew your hope and your dreams for good paying jobs, for access to affordable health care, and also access to safe places to live. I have pursuing justice has been the foundation of my legislative agenda. And for that reason, as your state senator, I was the chief co-sponsor of raising the minimum wage. I was the chief co-sponsor pushing for nursing home reform, the respect of our elders and our seniors. I was the chief sponsor of passing legislation to stop all predatory lending in the state of Illinois.
What does that mean? What does predatory lending mean?
Predatory meaning if you went to get an auto loan, a title loan, small installment loan, a payday loan, the rates are 197%, 200%. I've capped it at 36%.
Wow.
And even though I think that's usury, 36% was the best I could do, but it's better than 200%.
So when black people go to
purchase an auto loan,
get a loan,
installment loan, small installment
put
loan,
your house up as
put your
collateral,
house collateral.
then you lose the house. That's what they're looking for.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
So, but not only that, I established an Illinois task force of human trafficking to make focus on the disparities.
Human trafficking, what does that mean?
Well, I'm looking at the disparity of the investigating of missing Black women and girls. That's what it does. I also established a task force to look at the high rate of deaths of pregnant Black women and Black infants. I also last week passed legislation. I've been fighting for you to be safe in your homes, your schools, and your communities. I passed legislation last week, the first in the Midwest, banning all ghost guns. Ghost guns are untraceable guns that you're finding in many of these instances of carjacking.
Wow.
I also sponsored legislation to put up the cameras on the expressways in reference to the license plate readers.
Okay.
So I'm running not on rhetoric. I'm running on a record. I'm running to pursue justice, to bring and continue the work that I've done in the Senate, bring it home and finish the job in Washington, D.C. As far as crime, we have to reimagine how we deal with crime. Many of my colleagues are pushing to lock them up. What we went through in 1994, with 3 strikes, you're out. What we criticized Biden for supporting. We don't want to go back there. We want to go forward. And that's why we put over $190 million into programs, preventive programs to keep our children engaged and off the streets, and so they don't end up in the penal system.
Wow. Good job, Madam Senator.
Thank you.
Good job. Good job. We're going to open up the questions right now. Where is he? All right.
Hello, Danielle Sanders from the Chicago Defender again.
Chicago Defender question. Who you going to start with?
Studies show that student loan debt negatively affects wealth accumulation for Black adults. What is your position on forgiving student loan debt? And what do you think the federal government's role is?
Forgiving student loan debt. What is your position on that? Who wants to
Yes,
start?
that's for everyone. That's for everyone. I'd like to know their position on forgiving student loan debt.
Are you raise your hand?
There you go. Thank you.
Oh, you want to go in order?
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Fred.
Thank you. My position on student loan debt is that much of the student loan debt that has been accumulated, that is burdening an entire generation, part of that generation, it was predatory in its accumulation. It must be forgiven. But here's what I say. This is why we cannot just send another Democrat to Congress. We've got to send a new kind of Democrat to Congress. Student loan forgiveness is something that, unlike other pieces of legislation that will take time, teamwork, coalition building, and patience, all this really is going to take is a little bit of courage to call out and challenge our own team. This is something that can be done. It should already be done. And when I'm in Congress, I'm going to be on CNN and every platform that I can find, calling out my own partners and my own party and telling us that we need to keep our promise and we need to forgive student loan debt. That's not something that takes anything except for a little bit of courage to challenge our own party. Everybody in this room knows, I can tell you as a pastor, you don't want a friend who won't challenge you. And I'm going to be a very good Democrat. But a good Democrat is a Democrat who will call out Democrats and say that we need to keep our promises and get student loan forgiveness done.
Okay, good job. Good job. This is a young lady endorsed by Bobby Rush. Yeah.
When I speak on student loan debt, I speak from very personal experience. I took out loans when I was an undergrad at Northwestern University. I graduated and joined the Teach for America program before there was AmeriCorps. Wow. And so they allowed us to have a portion of our debt forgiven every year that we stayed in the classroom. So after I finished my years in the classroom, I still had some part to pay, repaid that. It was only about $8,000. I was able to do that without a problem. I remember the day that the woman called and said, "Hey, your debts are repaid." I was so proud. I graduated from law school in 1996.
Yes.
This is 2022. You want to guess how much I still owe on my law school student loans?
How much?
$200,000.
Right now?
And wait, and my monthly payments are bigger than most of your mortgages.
Come on now.
And so what that says to me is that our system is rigged. It is a gimmick, and it is not about paying back your school. I've paid my school back 4 or 5 times over, right? This is not, and let me just talk about the solutions real quick. So Barack Obama passed a law to create the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program.
Yes.
98% of the folks who applied for that program got rejected, myself included, even though we were all qualified based on the rules. And so it didn't require us to rewrite a new law. What it required was the courage of Senator Warren and President Biden, and they charged the Department of Education with changing the rules, changing the way they interpreted the rules. It didn't require a whole new bit of legislation. And so if they can do that for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, they can do the same thing for the predatory loans that we've all had to basically buy onto in order to be able to go to college. The other piece is that college needs to be affordable. The private cost of college is exorbitant. Northwestern is $80,000 a year now. There's no reason for that, especially when the schools have billions of dollars in endowments.
Wow. Thank you very much. Your turn, young man.
Yes, sir. So first of all, I do believe that we should have student loan forgiveness for public universities. And I believe the best way to finance that is through Elizabeth Warren's 2-cent wealth tax plan, a 2-cent tax on every dollar made after $50 million, which is projected to generate $3.75 trillion in revenue to help finance public education. But I also believe we should normalize sending our students to trade schools and alternative programs outside of just a 4-year degree in university. I used to volunteer for the Troy LaRaviere, and he's a graduate of Dunbar High School. And he told me when he was in high school, they used to work on helicopters inside of Dunbar, right? That no longer exists in the vocational programs like Dunbar and CVS and even Simeon that used to have, great auto mechanic programs and trade and vocational programs that young people could take advantage of for their future. So part of my responsibility is, yes, making sure that we have the financial resources to pay for public universities, but also ensuring that there are alternative options other than just a 4-year degree to build wealth and sustain a good life in this country.
Good job. Good job. Things are very fluid. I'm the moderator, and people are coming in and going out, and we just have a man just walked in. He's a candidate for Congress Steve Dejois. Stand up. Yes.
Thank you,
Tell
Art.
us, tell us about where did you grow up, where you're from? Are you a Chicagoan or what?
Steve, you're on group 2.
Uh-oh,
He's in group 2?
Yes, he's in group 2.
I'm in group 2.
Thank you.
You're too early.
Too early.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah. All right,
Thank you.
State's Attorney, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I share the same experience that you had, Karen. I went to Northwestern University School of Law, and I came up 10 years before her and still owe $100,000.
Wow.
But be that as it may, I think that it is patently unfair that as one of the first rites of passage that we ask our children to do is to go into debt and sign on that dotted line so they can go to college. And with that being said, it's even worse that we have no way for them to have it forgiven. So I absolutely believe it should be forgiven. How is it that Donald Trump can go and file bankruptcy on all of his failed businesses, but a student loan debt cannot be excused in bankruptcy?
Wow.
Right? So I have had students in my class who have come to me and said, Ms. Goodrum, we got a plan. We're gonna go take out a credit card, pay off our student loan debt, and then we're gonna go file bankruptcy. Now, it's bad enough that they had to think this way, but it's even worse that it would work, right? And so it's putting us behind the bar as students, especially in our community. We're already behind the bar having to take out all the loans, but now we have to absolutely excuse these loans all the way across the board. And I know I'm almost done.
No, you take your time, take your time.
Thank you.
This is-
I really believe that we should go ahead and allow our high school students to get their associate's degrees, and that will cut off 2 years of college and 2
Yes.
years of debt, and they can get their master's degree in that same 4-year allotment of time that we have given them for college. And we also have to look into these endowed universities, because the endowed universities will help our students get out of school without that debt
Yes.
until we get this legislation passed. And one final thing, just yesterday, I heard Williams College is now following that format, and they are only giving out grants. They are no longer giving out loans to their students. And if that little school can do it, I know we can do it across the board. Thank you so much.
Good job, good job. Thank you very much, thank you very much. Professor, I'm passing you the microphone.
Thank you very much. What is the solution to our current student debt crisis? In 2005, 2006, under the George Bush administration, there was a bankruptcy reform laws that went into effect. Prior to that law, bankruptcy, you could discharge your student debt. They essentially gave a government securitization on this debt, even to private institutions. And as a consequence, you saw for-profit colleges spring up, targeting the military families, slamming them with this debt with a 50% level of default. And those soldiers that came back home that tried to go to school have now been given non-dischargeable debt by the federal government on a private insurer. That is wrong fundamentally.
What does that mean? What does that mean? Non-dischargeable debt?
Yes, so therefore, it's like an RS penalty. You cannot discharge it.
Wow.
You have to clear it up. The student loan debt at that time was roughly $400 billion.
Woo.
After the law changed, now it's roughly $1.8 trillion.
Trillion.
It is moving at an escalating pace. It's burdening a current generation, turning them away from schools. I agree with my colleague here. I want to see these trades back in the school. Dunbar had auto mechanics, CVS had it, Simeon had electrical. We had these programs.
Right.
When I say we've been divested, we need to put them back into the school and make them fully functional.
Gotcha. That's a good point. All right, Brother Cole.
And so I applied to one college in high school, and that was Howard University, of course, right? And that's because Sean Puffy Combs went there. That's why I applied. My friends and I, we didn't match the skills we had with whatever the college offered. We chose colleges based upon were they on ESPN or big names. Like we didn't match our skills. I chose Howard University because that's where Sean Puffy Combs went.
Right.
Paid $75 to apply, and we didn't have money like that. I grew up eating at the Charity across the street, living in a motel. It was $75. I don't know how my dad came up with the money.
Wow.
I applied, never heard anything back from Howard all year. I went to my guidance counselor. I said, hey, I applied to Howard University. She was like, well, Jamal, you go to an alternative high school. You can't go to a Division I school. I didn't know the difference between Division I, what's that? She said, well, you go to alternative. You need to go to a trade school, go to the military. You can't go to college. I said, why is she talking down on me? I'm going to the league. I'm getting my family out the hood. I'm gonna go to NBA.
Right.
She left the office. I grabbed a book off her shelf. It said All American Colleges. I ripped the page out. The page that I ripped out said Wayne State College, Nebraska. Guess what? They offered scholarships to people all over the country from alternative high schools. So when I say this, I work in high schools with youth all the time. We're not matching the skills we have with what the universities offer. We're just picking colleges based upon big names.
Yes.
The key to that is exposure. Kids, if you show them better, they're going to do better, right? If they don't know any better, they won't do any better. I do agree with student loan forgiveness. That's what we need to do. But we also have to educate our youth to what's out there. Everybody I talk to want to be a rapper and a basketball player. That's great. You can take them same kids to Gatorade and they can learn about consumer engagement. They're gonna say, I want to be a consumer engagement specialist now, Jamal.
Wow.
You'll say, well, why? Well, I never even knew that job existed. So I think exposure is key. Exposure to cultures, professions, to colleges, matching the skills you have with what the college offers. And I think kids will make better decisions if they have that exposure.
What do you think of an HBCU? What do you think of HBCUs?
I love it, man. I love HBCUs. I just left North Carolina A&T. I seen your pops there playing. I see your pops. His pops is a football player in North Carolina A&T. I was so happy to see him on the wall, bro. I was so pumped up. I love HBCUs, man. Howard University all day.
Senator Collins.
Well, let me just say, I personally as well with Karen and Cassandra carry student debt. I just graduated from law school in 2020. And so you can imagine how much I owe.
How much?
Well, it's over $200,000.
Wow.
Over $200,000 I owe. But let me just say, Black women carry the highest burden of student debt. Right now, the debt for students is $1.4 trillion in the United States. But of that, 2/3 are carried by women.
Wow.
And of that amount, Black women carry 22% of that debt. And we know that, well, it's 22% more than white women. So again, the burden is on Black women. And when they graduate, they have other realities to deal with. Many times they have family issues and responsibilities of caring for their families or their kids or a sick loved one or an elderly individual. So my objective in reference to how do we solve or deal with the issue of student debt is, again, I support Senator Elizabeth Warren and Senator Sanders' initiative of relieving and forgiving student debt, but also to offer grants, increase investments in higher education by offering grants, but also having some kind of financial forgiveness for students that come from low and moderate income families. We know that many of us were maybe the first in our families to go to colleges. Many of us fall within that category of low and moderate income. We should have a plan for financial forgiveness for those individuals. And let me just say, I heard Simeon mention in the trades. I fought to keep the electrical trade program at Simeon.
Good.
And I think I have some Simeon constituents here, teachers.
Thank you.
I fought to keep that electrical program there.
Why was that important? Why was
That
that
was
important?
important to give our kids an opportunity of access to other opportunities where you have a well-paying job.
Oh.
You go in, you can make $60,000 after a year or so, giving them a professional outlook to have more role models of the teachers that are at Simeon to understand that once you get a union job, you also fall with a pension. When you retire, you have a pension as well. So I just want to say, we also put the trades into CBS. The trades are in CBS and at Dawson Skills Center. So we are fighting to ensure that we get the trades in more public schools, but that's a fight we have to have with the Chicago public school system. And we know we just voted for elected school board, which is a major improvement to ensure accountability and transparency with the board. Thank you.
So I want to ask you a question about the programs that you just talked about. How can we get more schools to be in the trades? I mean, you've done a wonderful job at Simeon and CVS. Well, we need more.
We have to work with the unions, the trade unions, because
that's the key.
That's the key. And we have to have a governor and other individuals that put the pressure on the trades. We know that the Democratic Party relies a lot on labor and the trade unions, right?
Yeah.
So we have to have a leadership in the governor's office to pressure the labor, the trades. Not all unions are bad. I work and support SEIU. There have been phenomenal workers in the healthcare
Yes.
area. So it's only the trades that we have the problems. Those are the same individuals who left after Harold Washington established a trade center in the city, moved out to the suburbs where the lack of transportation and access for our constituents. So we need to put the pressure, even the mayor on the state and on the city level. Those officials can labor or pressure those
So do you tell our
unions.
kids they can be anything they want to be? They don't
Yes.
have to really go to college to make that big check?
They don't have to go to college. We,
Okay, Art, we
we-
gotta move on.
All right, I'm.
Tia Carroll Jones, Citizen Newspaper Group. The first district is a vast district that stretches from the south side of Chicago to the southern suburbs. What will you do to ensure that issues that affect all the constituents in the district are addressed?
Start with the Reverend.
So that's a very good question.
Say your name again
My name is
because
Pastor
we're
Chris
live,
Butler. Yes, indeed.
streaming live all over the world right now. So say your name and where
Awesome.
you are.
Yeah, so my name again is Pastor Chris Butler, and my website again is electchrisbutler.com. And I think this is a very important question. Two things that I want to say about this. Again, we have to not just send another Democrat, but a new kind of Democrat. I worked for 6 consecutive years advocating for an improved redistricting process in the state of Illinois. It does not make sense that you can be on 87th and the Dan Ryan and be in the same congressional district with somebody that's almost in Kankakee, Illinois. It does not make very much sense to me that you can go east from the lake, from the expressway back to the lake and cut through 3 and 4 congressional districts. And I was part of a scant few who suggested that we have to prioritize people over party in redistricting. But we have the district that we have. I have been for the last year, because I announced my candidacy in April of last year.
Okay.
And I've been for the last year holding together rallies. We've held them in the south side of Chicago. We've held them in Frankfurt, and we've held them in the Heritage Corridor area. And in order to do this, we have to help people understand that everywhere in the district, we have the same issues, or at least common issues. My wife and I, we live in the south side of Chicago. Our kids take programs in Mokina. We have friends who live in New Lenox and pastors who I fellowship with in Kankakee and all over this congressional districts. Folks want to live in homes and communities where they feel safe. They want to send their kids to schools where they can get a quality education. They want to be able to make a living that allows them to afford the simple joys that help us have a good life. We are similar people across this congressional district, and I've worked in so many different coalitions across the state of Illinois, bringing together the Farm Bureau with the Urban League on education funding reform, and I'm going to keep doing that in Congress.
Thank you very much.
Can everyone
Introduce yourself
hear?
again.
I mean, can the candidates, can you hear when the clock go off? Can you hear it? I just want to make sure. All right.
They hear it, Eli. They hear it very well.
All right, I'm Karen Norrington Reeves, votekaren.com, Karen with an I. So to the question, Tia, this is a vast district. And while I recognize that it's gerrymandered for a reason. It's gerrymandered in alliance with the Voting Rights Act to make sure that Black voices are represented. And so this district is 70% in the city and 30% in suburban areas. And what I will do to your question to address the needs of everyone,
Yes.
and just so everybody knows, this district is urban, suburban, and rural. We actually have farmland and farmers in this district. At the end of the day, we're all human beings and we all care about the same things. We want economic opportunity, we want to take care of ourselves and our families. We want to live free from harm. We want to live without violence. And we want to be able to take care of the piece of property that we own or the property that we rent or that we call home. And so what I propose is to create councils, essentially policy councils within the entire district so that everyone has an opportunity to participate in government. I'm going to honor the time and stop there. Maybe
You're good. You're
that
good.
later.
Thank you very much. Eli said thank you.
So as it's been said, the district has a vast geographic space with the northernmost boundary.
Say your name because we're live,
Yes, sir.
streaming live.
My name is Michael Thompson, candidate for the United States Congress in the 1st District of Illinois. Vote Thompson2022.com is my website, vote Thompson2022.com. And as I was saying, northernmost boundary, 14th in Indiana, southernmost boundary, Bourbonnais, just north Kankakee County, and then westernmost boundary, the Shannon-Home, Wilmington area. As Ms. Reeves was saying, it's a vast district. You have conservative and liberal, rural, urban, but as everyone's been saying, and I think it holds true, we all have similar values and we all have similar wants and needs for our families and our communities. We want to be safe. We want our children to be educated, and we want to make sure that every day we walk out the door, there's opportunity and we don't have to worry about violence happening or occurring to our family members. So I think that's the best way to reach the district, just remembering just that simple fact that we're more similar than we are different.
Good job. Good job. The bell didn't even go off on you. Man, that's punctual.
Good afternoon again. I'm attorney Cassandra Goodrum. I think we should have an engaged, educated, empowered constituency for peace here in this 1st Congressional District. And to make that happen, I envision building district clubs. And the district clubs are going to put the power of government back into the hands of the people where it belongs in the first place. We should be answering to you. So these district clubs would not only be able to help you to hold me accountable, they will also empower you so that you can get the resources that you need within those communities. So we would have representatives from each and every very community, whether it's rural or urban, doesn't matter. When we all come together and get the information that we need, then we can get the resources that we need to those communities. And also to that end, I'm looking at every Saturday morning, we have Community in Conversation. It's a Zoom call. You can look it up on my website. And in that Zoom call, we have community reaching out to each other and sharing resources. So thank you. Join us at Goodrum for Congress. Thank you.
All right,
Together
Professor.
we win.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On to the last question. I wanted to finish that. Student loan interest has to be discharged, has to be forgiven. I don't have a problem with people repaying principal, taking out loans.
Okay.
But the interest must be forgiven. It's gone up over $1 trillion. It's broken, it's wrong. The question before us now is, how do we connect this entire district? We are running district-wide. We have supporters, even in Wilmington, Illinois, on Water Street. We're going back down there. I understand the district from the rural end all the way to the heart of the urban. I think I'm uniquely qualified to continue to bridge that gap, not just looking at the district, but looking at the region. I wanted to talk about the future of the district. When Ford Motor Company goes into West Memphis and makes an $11 billion investment for electric vehicles, although Ford Heights is not in the district, it's in the region. We have to be concerned about how do we bring jobs into this area. People that are asset limited and income constrained and still employed, simply meaning that they are working poor. 50% of Illinoisans are making less than $20 an hour.
Wow.
We have to raise wages in this area. We have stagnant wages and rising poverty with people that are working, and that has to stop.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Jamal Cole, running for Congress in the 1st District. When you go to the polls, vote for Jamal Cole, right? Also, I want to say that it's simple, y'all. You got to show up. You got to show up. You have to have the energy to show up to these places in the 1st District. I rode my bike all the way to Frankfurt. Took me 4 hours to get there. I showed up to the school board meetings in Tinley Park. You know what they're talking about? What? They got $58,000 for homelessness to cover 4 high schools in Tinley. That's not enough. They don't even have ramps for the kids with wheelchairs to get into the schools. You gotta want to show, you have to have the energy to show up all over to every municipality in the 1st District. It's not about creating something for people to come to you. You gotta show up. I'm gonna be in New Lenox, taking the metro to get to New Lenox, talking to people. I'm riding horses way out in Manhattan with people. This is what I generally love to do, is listen, show up, and help. That's what I'm gonna do. Thank you.
All right. Senator Collins.
I'm State Senator Jacqueline Collins, and I'm running for the 1st Congressional District. And I'm really appreciative of that question because I represent a district right now that replicates the 1st Congressional District. I represent a district that not only has the city, I go outside of Chicago. I have portions of Oakline, Hickory Hills, Justice, Worth, Bridgeview, Indian Head Park. So it really reflects the district of the 1st Congressional District because it's municipalities, suburban and urban. And so I have built a strong relationship within those communities, the same thing that I would do in the new communities of Will County. How do you do that? You do connect with people. I have town hall meetings in every district that I represent, every community that I represent. I ensure that all the resources that come into the state are equally distributed, although I give more to the communities based on their need. But also I make sure that my constituents in Indian Head Park receive funding for their needs as well. So I've spent more than $6 million this last session for capital development throughout my district. I also brought in this district, Auburn Gresham. Thank you.
Oh, you could have finished your sentence.
Auburn Gresham has been lacking access of transportation from Metro. I have recently established a $30 million project to open up the Metro station at 79th Street and Lowell. Because when the white flight took place, many of the transports or the stops on the Metro line were moved further into Beverly and Evergreen Park. So I ensure, this is a 10-year battle, a war that I fought with Metro and the state. Right now, we will have a station, a $30 million station that allows our constituents, my constituents, to get to the jobs in the suburbs, also to travel downtown. Before, I just want to say, the Rock Island line was only stopping at leaving Union Station, only stopping at 35th Street to service White Sox Park and De La Salle High School. They did stop at 87th Street, but then once they got to Beverly, they stopped every other block.
Senator Collins.
So I wanted to make sure that my constituents had access.
No, she's gonna keep the mic, stay there, because you're next, Senator Collins. Gonna give you the next question.
All right. And this is a meet the press kind of a format. We've got journalists over there. The Black press is over there from the Chicago Defender, the Chicago Crusader. Everybody's over there. Tell them who you are, and we're on live, streaming live.
Good afternoon, candidates of the 1st Congressional District. My name is Eric Johnson. I'm with the Chicago Crusader. I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit to the area of social justice. At the end of his term, at the end of his illustrious career, Congressman Rush was an activist in addition to being a politician. Finally, he had the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act passed after it failed over 200 times in Congress. In 2013, Laquan McDonald was murdered in the 1st Congressional District. On February 3rd this year, his killer, Jason Van Dyke, was released from prison. And despite what he had done, the U.S. Justice Department failed to bring charges against him. But one of the things I noticed while covering that story at the Dirksen Federal Building downtown was that one of the criticisms was that despite all the Black politicians and elected officials in Chicago, very few actually showed up to a protest that was there. Today, I present the question to all of you candidates. And with the exception of Jonathan Jackson, I was there that day. I didn't see none of you that were there. I want to get your take on how do you feel about the U.S. Justice Department not bringing any charges whatsoever against Officer Jason Van Dyke?
First of all, let me just say that the reason I was not there, we were in session in Springfield, but prior to that, I was at the group meeting at Operation Push or Rainbow Push when we were coordinating and strategizing what would take place that day. And I did indicate to the Reverend that I could not be there because I would be in session fighting to make sure that you got a balanced budget. We got a balanced budget this year. I believe that's wrong. I believe, but you have to look beyond that. You have to look at who was supporting John Losh remaining here as the a person involved in whether or not to pursue the charges. Also, you have to look at Senator Durbin and Tammy Duckworth, who also supported the issue of not pressing charges or having them go forward with ensuring that he comes back to be brought on charges of violation of civil rights. So I'm going to do everything I can once I get to Congress to ensure to put the pressure on the executive level as well. Maybe we need to replace John Walsh, who was the only Republican who was not asked to resign. He did turn in his resignation, but because of Durbin and Tammy Duckworth, he was allowed to stay. So that's what we need to do. We need to change the person who's here, who was the first one in line to say whether or not we would pursue the charges of civil rights violations.
Yeah, I'll say that, we've seen people all over the country, stand up and protest against the almost common police killings of American citizens like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, our own Adam Toledo, Laquan McDonald. I will say that I'm looking into the consent decree, right? I look at the consent decree a lot. The consent decree is a document that enforces an enforceable plan for reform because the police department is found guilty of targeting Black and brown people. This consent decree is an enforceable plan for reform because the Chicago Police Department was found guilty of targeting Black and brown people. It was agreed to by the police department, it was agreed to by the city of Chicago, and it was agreed to under the Obama administration. And it hasn't lived up to what it stands for. So again, I think that our criminal justice system definitely needs to be reformed. And also I want to say there's all types of activists. We all have our different tactics and agendas in addressing issues. Some activists, they don't have nonprofit programs, right? Their specialty is making sure causes aren't forgotten. And I think that's great for Chicago because they put pressure on institutions to address issues we care about, right? So I think that we all work together as activists and we need a partner in federal government to help us. But again, we're standing up all over the country and protesting against these things. Officers need to be held accountable for their actions. They need to be active participants in the neighborhoods they serve. They need to stop giving people 6 tickets for a city sticker in the middle of a pandemic, doing petty stuff like that. That's crazy. This needs to stop. We need to end qualified immunity that protects officers from any civil liability. We need to end the school to prison pipeline. Kids walking into schools with metal detectors these days. We got to hold them accountable for their actions. And that's what I'm gonna do when I'm in Congress, man.
Wow. The first thing I would like to see happen with policing, policing is a dangerous business and they deserve to be respected and protected. When we call them, we do not deserve to be killed for the call. I was outraged early on with the conduct of a Commander John Burge. When I came back, moved from school back to Chicago, and I remember the name from high school of a Commander John Burge that had tortured men, specifically African-American men, putting electric prods on their testicles, putting a shotgun in their mouth. He tortured human beings. One tortured child can ruin your classroom. One tortured child can ruin your school. One tortured child can ruin your entire neighborhood. Some of the pain these children are going through is unthinkable. We have to address the trauma that they have been exposed to. The second thing I would like to share with you is on the issue of Jason Van Dyke. That was a political crime, and we saw it before our very eyes. To pay a family $5 million before an officer is charged, that is bribery, and no one else was held accountable. And those that are affiliated with persons like Rahm and that behavior should be challenged. That's poor character, that's poor government, and we should challenge that. So it's just not Rahm, it's the spirit of Rahm and all those that would represent him. And I'm telling you that is alive and well. The last part I would tell you that on police reform, it's a delicate balance. Crime is out of control right now. And we are seeing too many murders that are unsolved. This morning I stopped by the funeral at St. Philip Neri of Miss Riley, who was shot execution style, an 81-year-old grandmother, a mother and a brother, a mother and son, all killed, no one in custody. When we saw on March 9th, 2 days after I turned in my petitions, a murder on 75th off University, no one's in custody. We have too many murders that go unsolved. Now, I'm telling you, if they can find someone that was looking for a Subway sandwich in the middle of the night and say they've investigated a crime, I want them to find the crime to these murders. The federal government gives our locality money. I want them to spend it and have more than a 16% clearance rate, meaning finding those who shot and killed someone.
Good afternoon. I am Cassandra Goodrum, attorney Cassandra Goodrum. I was at that protest, sir, and I was there with the dogs, with the people, the cops on bikes, with the federal agents on bikes, and I witnessed the injustice that is going on because Mr. Van Dyke was not charged. But we also know that he was hidden in prison. We know that nobody knew where he was. They knew that when they let him out, they evidently, they said they put a bracelet on him, on his ankle. I don't believe it. But we knew going in that they were not going to do the right thing. And that is the unfortunate part. And that is why I'm here to say we have to absolutely call out the systemic racism that exists within our criminal justice system. And you cannot whitewash it. You have to say that it's there and address it. And this is specifically one of those situations where we have to call it out and not allow it to continue in our communities, because we know that we are being affected by it more than any other communities in our country, right here in our Black communities. I teach criminal justice at Chicago State, and I encourage my students to recognize what is going on, but also learn how to fix it and come up with new ideas. And those new ideas include the retraining, of course, of the police. We have to retrain them, but we have to also understand they too are human. They want to go home at the end of the night once they have finished their shifts. We have to be cognizant of that. That means that there is no we and them, it's us. And that's why I'm saying we have to work together to end the violence within our communities, because we know we have the trauma we have to address. Those police are suffering from that same trauma. We have to address it as a community and work to pull it all together. So because it's together that we win. And that's why I'm asking you to go vote Goodrum.
Good job. Thank you.
So I'm in the Michael Thompson, candidate for the United States Congress in the 1st District of Illinois. Again, website, votethompson2022.com. I am in complete agreement that we need to reimagine public safety in this country. Then it invites the question, what does that mean? Are there any veterans in the audience right now? Any veterans? Do you mind just yelling out your MOS? And what did you do as a veteran? Communications. Understood. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you. So in the military, thank you. In the military, you have about a 20 to 80% ratio of combat to combat support, right? In your standard local police department, it's about a 70 to 30% ratio of standard patrol officers to administrative roles or other opportunities within the force. What I hope to do is have the same diversity of job sets that we have in our military's MOS system and apply that to the diverse needs that our communities have. There's no reason why we shouldn't have mental health trauma experts that are going out on 911 calls for mental health calls. It's the exact same program that they have in LA with the SMART teams. There's no reason why DCFS and other programs can't be available to support police officers when they're going into these situations where it's a non-violent conflict, right? And learning those de-escalation tactics and learning ways to de-escalate violence in our communities. Thank you.
All right, so I want to come back to your question, Eric. I was not at the protest. I did, however.
Because we're streaming live, I want you to introduce yourself every time you get up.
All right. Karen Norrington Reeves, votekaren.com. All right. So I was not at the protest, Eric. I did, however, I am on the record as having issued a statement asking for charges to be brought against Jason Van Dyke. So I'm gonna put on my law professor hat for just a moment. I was a law professor at Loyola University for about 8 years, adjunct law professor. So there's two different things we're talking about. When Jonathan was talking about the settlement to the family, that is a civil matter. What we're talking about is a criminal matter and federal criminal charges being brought against the police officer. So that can come under a couple of different things. And Jamal touched on qualified immunity, which is essentially what's called an affirmative defense. That's the way they get out of being held accountable. The way we hold them accountable is under Section 1983. That is where the charges should have been brought against Van Dyke. And here's the thing, even if you want to argue that, oh, maybe he didn't have time to think, whatever the arguments are, you let that play out in the court of law. You bring the charges anyway and let that play out. And so what we need is a new interpretation of Section 1983, or we need a whole new law altogether that doesn't allow for that qualified immunity defense as an affirmative defense to get out of killing our young Black men and women. The reality is that our adolescence has been criminalized in this country. A white child can make a mistake at the age of 17 and not go to jail for it. A Black child doing the exact same thing, or a brown child, will more likely than not face a harsher penalty. And so that's where we have to make the change. And that is something that we can affect on a federal level.
Again, my name is Pastor Chris Butler, electchrisbutler.com. I think about the Laquan McDonald trial and the charges that were never filed, the federal charges at least that were not filed. But when I think about it, I think about all of the days that I spent weeping over this tremendous issue that is in our community. When I think about public safety, I think about the airplane that I just got off of a few hours ago. It has two wings. It's got engines on both sides. And if the pilot got on there and said, we're going to take off, but we're only going to use the right engine, I would have got off that plane, as would you. And we cannot have a holistic public safety system where we do not have effective law enforcement that we can trust. And effective investment and prevention and intervention programs that we believe in. And this issue of filing these charges is significant to me as somebody who wants to see policing work, who wants to see, I think there's a tremendous difference between somebody, having some drugs or something like that, or somebody pulling out a gun and committing a violent crime in our community. That should not be tolerated in our community. We need strong law enforcement. And when we don't hold folks accountable who are supposed to be enforcing the law and run afoul of the law, then we break down that trust. And if we cannot have that trust, we cannot have safety in our communities. And so I'm unsure even if I was at the particular event, but I've marched in so many protests and prayed in so many prayer lines. I founded the Chicago Peace Campaign back in 2006. But we have to rebuild trust because we can't do it without law enforcement. We can't do it without investments in prevention and intervention programs, but we cannot do it if we don't rebuild trust. And so, I praise God for the marching, which I've done. I praise God for the press conferences and the protests, which I've done. I praise God for the moments that we take to sit and weep and to talk with one another, to do everything that we can to try to rebuild this trust, because if we don't do that, we're not going to have safe and effective communities.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to do a few questions. What I would like to do, candidates, there are a bunch of questions here, and we're definitely not going to get to every last one of them. Did everyone put their email address on the sign-in sheet? What I'm going to do, every question that is answered that's been submitted, we're going to send it to you. And then you send it back to us, and we will promise that we will get it out to you, every last question that was asked, okay? Two quick questions, and if you could do this in less than 10 seconds, that'd be great. First, what is your big economic idea for economic development? Started with you, sir, Reverend.
Economic development.
Big idea for economic development. I think the best thing that we can do for economic development is put money in the pockets of all of the brilliant people in this room and in this community and across the district. You can read my article in the Chicago Tribune about a universal basic income, which will put money directly in the pockets of people so that we can develop our own community.
I too am a big supporter of universal basic income, but let me say this. I think that the issues that we have to solve with respect to economic development cannot be solved by government alone. It requires public sector, private sector, and philanthropic sector coming together to actually create hyper-local investments in order to stimulate economic engines. And the reason I know this can be done is because I've done it time and time again over the past decade.
Good job.
Michael Thompson, votethompson2022.com, candidate for United States Congress in the 1st District, agreeing with the candidates, Mr. Butler and Ms. Reeves, with universal basic income, as well as investments in both the public and private sector, but also believe we need for economic development, again, our resources for community champions. There are a lot of small neighborhood community organizations that don't have the capital to scale their operations in a fast pace. The state and local fiscal recovery fund a couple of months ago had a meeting where they said reimbursement-based grants are going to start allowing a 25% advancement. That's huge for smaller organizations that can immediately get a $250,000 award for $1 million grant to help scale up their operations and have a greater impact in our communities. And I believe we should have more financial resources for those smaller community organizations to be able to perform the activities they need.
Thank you. We're trying to move it along.
Attorney Cassandra Goodrum. Engage, educate, and empower. So in our communities, I envision using the cannabis industry as an economic engine. Cannabis is not currently deregularized at the federal level, but we need to make it legal across the country. And once we have done that, we need to also make sure that we set aside 33% to go into impoverished communities to help rebuild those communities and create a circular economy within those communities. I also envision this new green economy coming into this 1st congressional district. I can absolutely see where we can have solar panels and we can have wind turbines and we can have cooperative dispensaries where we are not just trying to get one person to get the benefits from those dispensaries that everybody has suffered so much from. How many people do you know that have caught a case because of marijuana? It's time for marijuana to pay for us now in our community and to keep us going. So that's where I see the economic engine coming into our community.
Thank you.
Vote for Goodrum.
Thank you. My name is Jonathan Jackson, website Jonathan Jackson for Congress. I'd like to be your congressperson in the 1st Congressional District. I would tell my students at Chicago State, it's hard to miss an opportunity if you're not looking for it. It's hard to miss an opportunity if you don't see it. Right now, where are the jobs? Where is the action? Where is the economy growing? There are 2 million cybersecurity jobs right now that are available. With the innovation of 5G technology, and the 5 is for generation, which represents speed, telecommunications is going to be revolutionized like you've not seen before. Highly magnetic resolution imaging where you can do telemedicine is now going to be a reality. If our internet speed is slower on the south side and the south suburbs than it is on the north side, it'll be easier to deal between New York and China, New York and Dubai than it will be from Chicago to New York City. We should have some universal broadband, and I can argue that as a civil rights. If the government is asking us to go online for our applications and our children to be online, they need to have a right to broadband access. The second thing I would tell you is my point. The Ford Motor Company left West Memphis in 1952. 70 years later, after the pandemic, they have taken manufacturing back to the South. But what's so significant is they've taken the United Auto Workers with them. This is revolutionary in our country. The first time in 70 years, the automotive company is taking union high-paying jobs back to the South. We've had a magnificent plant over here on the south suburbs. I would like to know why we didn't get that battery manufacturing electric vehicle work. I want to make this region hospitable to bring economics back.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to raise the minimum wage everywhere to $15 an hour. We got to expand on job training, right? We got to continue to impose heavier restrictions on these predatory and discriminatory banks. But not only raising the minimum wage, look, you can raise the minimum wage. You go from $12 an hour to $15 an hour, but you still cashing your check at the currency exchange, right? You go from eating ramen noodles to chicken cutlets, but you still cashing your check at the currency exchange. I talked to a kid the other day. He get paid on Friday. He go to the currency exchange, cashes his check for a fee. He jumps on a bus on 83rd, goes to Walmart to buy a prepaid debit card for another fee, right? He calls up, pays some bills for another fee, get paid again Friday, go back to over the course of a lifetime, people spending $40,000 in fees at the currency exchange. And then they got the nerve to charge you 3% on your money. Look, and they got a bulletproof glass windows when they robbing us. Like, who really being robbed? So I feel like it's too many currency exchanges in our community. So yes, we need to raise the minimum wage, but we need the education. We got to rich dad, poor dad our way out of this. There's too many NBA players cashing their check to the currency exchange, man. It's crazy.
Good job.
I'm State Senator Jacqueline Collins, and I'm running for Congress in the 1st Congressional District. Let me just say, for those currency exchanges, as the chairman of financial institutions, I put a stop on them raising the fee at currency exchanges. And so they have put forth that push to penalize and take advantage of our constituents, and I stopped them. So they are relegated or to not be predatory in our communities, and I'm working to close some of them down and use offers for unbanking, use the post office, possibly to look at public banking, also putting details in to look at also how do we stop the, well, let me guess the question, I'm sorry, before I run out of time. What I look at economic development is more than just jobs. It's about bringing in economic anchors into the community. That's what Metro is doing for the jobs that they're going to bring in. Also for the Healthy Lifestyle Hub that's going to open on 79th and Halsted, that I've put more than $30 million into that as well. It's going to have a pharmacy, a sit-down restaurant and cafe, but also it's providing jobs, as livable wage jobs as well. So I also want to say that what we also have to do is just ensure that the people have the support so they can go to job to get the pay. So that given that fact, I put in more than $14 million to help childcare assistance in this budget. Also paid leave, if you want to take a leave to take care of a sick one or someone, I put in legislation for paid leave, as well as the other thing that we're looking at also is a living wage and not just a minimum wage. And I was responsible for passing the legislation for the minimum wage, and we can go much further, but thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Melinda Kelly. I'm president of Chatham Business Association. Thank you for coming. I'm asking this question on behalf of some residents who live in the area. I think they're from Greater Chatham United. And I hope I do this question. I want to paraphrase it. Congressman Rush is part of the FCC Commission. And what we want to know is, following his footsteps or working with the FCC Commission, how do you plan to improve the broadband here in the 1st District? We still have working with carriers with the wires down, but more importantly, you know, everything you do from paying your utility bills is on an app, broadband meetings. And in the 1st District, the residents and the businesses are saying it's not affordable, it's not accessible. How do you see your role working with the FCC Commission to bring better broadband here to the 1st District?
Good question. Reverend?
Yep, Pastor.
10 seconds, please.
So you can start because you brought it up too. Go ahead.
Oh, Pastor Chris Butler. I believe that we should have universal broadband in this country. That is a necessary part of life for every person in this district, in this country.
As a former attorney with the Citizens Utility Board, where I focused on telecommunications regulation and consumer protection, I think it is absolutely important that we continue to press the FCC around rulemaking and ensure that we have quality, solid broadband that is free and accessible to everyone. And it has to be high quality. If you don't have a device, if you don't have broadband, if you don't know how to use the device, then you cannot be successful working remotely or even being educated remotely. We have to make sure that we have quality, high-speed broadband for all of our communities, which requires us to recable the communities and also offer it at a rate that is accessible for everyone.
Thank you.
Very simply, Michael Thompson, candidate for United States Congress, 1st District of Illinois, vote Thompson2022.com. It comes down to regulation, infrastructure, and education. All right, if we have the regulatory scheme that will allow for private enterprises as well as the public to invest in universal broadband, as well as building that infrastructure and putting dollars towards that infrastructure, but then also education. It doesn't help to have the universal broadband if the people in our community don't or can't use it. I spent a lot of time specializing on workforce development for the reentry population, and what you'll find is for every year that you spend in incarceration, you lose 3 to 5 years of digital literacy because of all the advancements that are happening right here in our communities every day. So it comes down to, like I said, regulation, infrastructure, and education.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What he said.
All right, then, take it in.
Goodrum. My name is Attorney Goodrum, and I am your candidate for the 1st Congressional District. I think I shared with you that I did divorce law and I did disability law as well. And what I have learned is that I can advocate, I can negotiate, and I can navigate. And I will take all of those skills with me to Washington, D.C. on your behalf to be your advocate, to make sure we get that broadband coverage that we need. I will make sure that I can also sit there and write the legislation that makes sure that it comes back with the economic component that we need to bring the changes in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's right, vote for Goodrum.
My name is Jonathan Jackson. I can be reached at Jonathan Jackson for Congress. The questions regarding how can we maintain our leadership on the FCC? The FCC is a huge commitment, is a huge committee and a huge commitment. We're talking about from AM to FM, the frequency modulation. We're talking about extraterrestrial satellite and radio. We're talking about the roles of the internet on who's doing shadow banning and knocking us offline. So it is very broad. And I would tell you that the communications industry is the 2nd most profitable industry in American history since slavery. This is the future. And we've seen this grow up in our generation. When Mr. Rush first got on there was generation 3. Now we've gone into generation 5, and it's going to have transformative effect. When I say I want to see us with the communication workers of America have a major position right here, the first cellular call was made in Soldiers Field with Motorola. I don't want to see us lose our leadership. It started here and we should advance it and keep it moving. And we should also deal with the radio at the FCC to clean up these airwaves that's poisoning these children's mind and spewing this violence. That's an FCC issue.
Yeah, I think that our children are going to suffer for years because of the pandemic's impact on our, educational system. A lot of students were in rural areas and low income areas that were left behind, not because they wasn't trying, but because they didn't have internet access, right? I think that I work with 150 students a month. And even if you were providing their families with the internet, you had to get them hotspots because they were transient. They was living in this house, that house. You had to provide 150 kids hotspots just to use the internet to stay in school. So again, I do think we need universal Wi-Fi, and I'm for that. I work with kids all the time right now that go to McDonald's to use the Wi-Fi. If they don't have the internet, they go to when you see us playing chess inside of McDonald's, that's what they don't got the internet outside. They go there to use it. Wendy's, McDonald's, universal Wi-Fi. That's the key.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Jacqueline Collins. I'm State Senator Jacqueline Collins, and I'm running for Congress in the 1st Congressional District. What I would do would use as a model what we've already done in the state. The state of Illinois has ruled. If you go down past I-80, south of I-80, you know that it's a very rural, very poor communities. And so what I would take to Congress is the same model that we used in the state. We've made a major infrastructure funding resources going to those areas that are most in need of internet access. So the kids don't have to go to the library to use the internet. So I would use that model, the investment and the monies that we put in and building up the infrastructure as well. So I would just follow that model. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Well,
Eli?
This comes to an end of our first group of candidates. We want to thank each and every one of you. God bless you in your journey. We want to thank you, the audience, for behaving.
Give him a big hand. Give him a big hand. For the people. Thank you very much.
Now,
thank you.
If I'm not mistaken, this is the first time this group has gotten together and you've heard each other's ideals and positions and stuff, because see, there was a candidates forum scheduled for this past Tuesday.
Yeah.
That's where it was at, Antioch Church. So they have rescheduled it. The group is called Neighbors Who Vote and Voices of West Inglewood. They're going to host a candidates forum on May the 10th at Freedom Temple, 1459 West 74th Street at 6:30 to 10 p.m. So now if the candidates for the second group can come forth, I would appreciate it. So that would be Robert Palmer, Kirby Bergens, Stephen DeJoy, Pat Dow, Amina Williams, Sharice Williams, Jonathan Swain, and Nakia McGriff. If you can come to the front. Again, Stephen DeJoy, hey, DeJoy. Terry Rosner, Robert Palmer, Kirby Biggins, Stephen DeJoy, Pat Dow, Amina Matthews, Sharice Williams, Jonathan Swain, and Nakia McGriff.
We're putting a group together for the second phase of our candidates forum. We have the candidates. There's so many candidates running for Congress right now in our community. We have the second group of pillars in the community, and they're going to be questioned in just a few minutes.
Our current candidates to leave the room so we can get started. They can greet in the foyer.
All right. Rock and roll. Rock and roll. We ask you to take your seats. We're beginning phase 2 of the candidates forum. This event is sponsored by the Chatham-Avalon Community Council, the Chatham Business Association, Chesterfield Community Council, Park Manor Neighborhood Community Council, Reunite Chatham, West Chesterfield Community Association. We're putting our candidates together. I'm your host, Art Norman, Channel 5 News, former Chicago president of the National Association of Black Journalists. We have journalists here from all over. The Black press is here, from the Citizen newspaper, from the Chicago Defender, the Chicago Crusader. The Black press is here, and they're going to be asking questions. This will be a similar format to Meet the Press. So we're asking you to take your seats. We're asking you to take your seats.
Everyone take your seats, please. We need to get started. We're running a little behind schedule.
We need to take your seats.
Take pictures in the vestibule, please.
We need you to take your seats. I'm walking down the aisle. I need it. Thank you. How you doing? God bless you.
Take your seat.
We need you to take your seats. We're about to begin.
Take your seat.
How you doing? How's everybody?
Take your seat.
We need you to take your seats. How you doing? Good afternoon. Mighty fine. I'm glad you're here. Right.
Okay, we are going to get started.
Yes.
Right now, again, I just want to go over the ground rules. No political campaign material will be circulated inside the forum. All campaign and political materials will be on display outside the forum. The audience is to be respectfully refrain from excessive exuberance for or against a particular candidate. Each candidate will have 2 minutes opening presentation. Remarks should focus on the challenges of office and remedies. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to questions from a panel of journalists and community members. All questions from the audience will be written down and given to representatives from one of the community groups who will give it to the moderator. Questions will be screened by community representatives in order to avoid a partisan question and to facilitate substantive dialogue. No questions from the floor will be entertained. Disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. Immediate removal from the forum. We are about to get started. Thank you very much.
My name is Art Norman from Channel 5 News. I am your moderator today. Thank you for being here. Give yourselves a big round of applause. This is the community listening to future leaders of Chicago. And they're going to be asking, they're going to be answering a lot of questions from you. You can write them out, and Eli will walk around you and grab your question cards. But we have the Black press here from the Chicago Defender, Crusader. They're all over there ready to ask questions. So we're going to begin. Can we begin, Eli? Okay, all right. Let's start over here. All right, stand up, grab the microphone, introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, where'd you grow up, and why do you want to be in Congress?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Jonathan Swain. I'm a candidate for Congress in the Illinois 1st Congressional District. My website is swain4us.com. Again, swain4us.com. First of all, let me thank the pastor and the leadership of this house for gathering folks together. We pray with the folks of Families of Antioch with their great loss. And thank you for opening your doors here, for allowing us to come together and share a little bit. I'm a son of the South Side. I was born in South Shore. I was raised in Hyde Park. I went to school in Chatham, not very far from here. I played baseball in Roseland and bought my first house with my wife in Auburn Gresham. My father was a business owner around the South Side. He had Swain Drugs at 83rd and King Drive and Swain Pharmacy at 67th and King Drive.
Remember that
and
well.
So you remember that, huh?
Yes.
So as such, my mother took me around the South Side and I began to get a real flavor for the richness of the South Side and the diversity of the South Side.
Yes.
I have 20 years of government experience. Most recently, I was a commissioner on the Chicago Board of Elections. I'm a second generation business owner, as I mentioned earlier. Kimbark Beverage Shop in Hyde Park is my business. I'm an entrepreneur. I was the founder of the Hyde Park Brew Fest, now known as the Hyde Park Summerfest, one of the largest South Side events on the South Side, demonstrating what we can do on the South Side together. And I'm the CEO of Link Unlimited Scholars, an organization that helped my wife and I get to college and go to college. And it helps send Black kids to college, prepares them to get to, through, and beyond. Let me say this, there are a lot of great people in this race. And the panel you heard before, I mean, we pretty much agree on a lot of stuff. I was shaking my head to all the answers that were up here. So I tell you, this election is really not about issues as much as it is about background, experience, and approach.
Yes.
And my thought is this election is not about electing a person, just electing a person to represent you in Congress. Okay. It's about selecting a leader who can lay the foundations for community growth for the next 25 years. I believe I'm that person. I'm happy to share with you more of my thoughts on that as we discuss this in the panel. Thank you.
Nice job. You heard the bell go off and you ended it very nicely. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
I want to thank everyone for coming out here and participating in this form of democracy. My name is Kirby Bergens. I am a candidate for U.S. Congress. You can visit my website at www.kirby2022.org. The reason why I'm running, I would say this here. A person like me should never be standing in front of you running for Congress. Born to two parents who suffered from substance abuse, raised by his grandmother in the hood. I'm running because I believe that the same issues that I faced as a kid are the same issues that we're facing right now. The First Congressional District right now is experiencing challenges, rising medical costs, housing affordability. We are losing our babies far too soon due to gun violence. And so with me, I put a new name on the ballot because I believe that it's time out for playing Washington's game with the same players and expecting different results. And I believe if we want to change policies, we must first change lawmakers. And so I give you another name on the ballot, Kirby Bergens for Congress.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Stand up. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Robert Palmer, and I want to formally announce that I'm running for U.S. Representative in the 1st Congressional District. And I'm running because I'm from Inglewood. I am tired of our citizens not having opportunity, and that goes for the whole district. But I am tired of the youngsters, the schools. I'm a teacher with CPS. I wanted to become.
What grade do you teach?
I teach high school, predominantly 9th grade.
Okay, good.
But I got tired going to school in Inglewood. I went to some of the worst schools. I had friends that could not read. And if you're behind the 8 ball like that, what kind of opportunities will you have or be given? Some of the we have to take responsibility, and myself included, for creating some of the cold-blooded killers in our community. People don't want to walk down the street.
Yeah.
People don't want to take CTA. They're afraid, and this should not be. But like I said before, the youngsters in Beverly Hills, California, are not carjacking people. And why is that? Because they have opportunity. They can go and buy a car if they want.
Right.
Our children do not have that same opportunity. I want to bring that opportunity back to our community. I'm not fearing for my life. I'm able to speak to people on the streets, no matter what economic background they are from. I'm a member of the Chicago Teachers Union, formerly a member of SEIU Local 73. I'm also a real estate broker.
Okay.
I believe in economic opportunity as well as affordable housing, healthcare, and I hear the bell going off. All right,
man.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Pass the microphone.
Thank
Introduce
you.
yourself.
Good afternoon. I am Sharice Williams, and I am running for 1st Congressional District. My website is www.sharice4congress.com. I am also from the South Side. I am a proud mother of a 20-year-old boy at Morehouse College. 20. Yes, you can. Thank you. I'll take all of that. Thank you. My mother is a retired teacher. My father is a Marine, and I am running because representation matters. I am running because our district, no one knows this, a little history, we got $30 billion from SBA from the CARES Act. That money was supposed to go to small businesses. Ms. Melinda Kelly may know this. We found out recently that the reason why we didn't get the money is because the federal government didn't tell the SBA to give it to us. So now many businesses that should have gotten that $30 billion never got it because representation matters. You need a person in the room who can be able to get this money from Congress and give it to the communities. This is what I've been doing. My work at ICJA, which is the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority. I have allocated hundreds of millions of dollars of federal funding to the communities. And honestly, I'm the only one that has. I've been working with federal funding, VOCA, VAWA, JAG, CARES Act, ARPA funding, where I've taken the money from the government. I know how to allocate it. I know how to make sure it gets to the communities that look like us, and we've been successful at it. I'm looking forward to talking more about it. But this is the reason why I'm running. We are getting about $17 billion in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act on January 1. Those monies are supposed to go to jobs, to infrastructure, to broadband, to changing our water lead pipes. If we don't have the right person in office that can get that money and give it to the communities that need it, then once again, the 1st District will be missed. Honestly, I'm tired of driving down I-57 and it's the same grass and the same trash I see now that I saw 20 years ago, where they're changing the tulips every other week downtown. I'm running because representation matters. Vote for me, Sharice Williams, for Congress.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Our favorite alderman's here. God bless you.
I may be your favorite. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pat Dowell. I am the daughter of a janitor who worked for Pan Am and the daughter of a mother who was a nurse. And they were people who were very much involved in their community. My father was on the PTA, not my mother. And my mother was involved in community organization work. And they took me around with them to various meetings. And I became committed to public service, committed to working with people because of what I saw my parents do. I became an alderman. I worked as a city planner. I'm a social worker. I've worked in Bronzeville. I work in the South Loop. I've been an alderman since 2007. I've worked to basically improve my community. And I think that it's important that when you send someone to Washington, that you're sending someone who just doesn't talk a lot, who's not a show horse, but someone who is a workhorse, who you
Yes.
know is going to go to Washington and do what's necessary to bring the resources back and the programs back and do the legislative work that's going to improve the life of you and your families. I'm running because I've done that in my ward. I think if you go through Bronzeville, you go through the South Loop, you see African-American businesses, you see houses that are being built by African-Americans, you see new improvements to parks and schools and things that we've done working with the people in the community. I think it's important when you send someone to Washington that you send someone there who is ready on day one.
Day one.
Not someone who is going to have to figure out how to do this, how to do that. And you want to make sure that the person that you're sending actually has the experience and the track record to represent you, because this is not a game. It's not about, power. It's not about putting your name out there. It's not about what is good for you. It is about what is good for the community and about the 1st Congressional District. www.illinoisfordowell.com. Thank you.
Spell your last name again.
Dowell.
All right, thank you, Alderman Dow. And this young man, I just want to say, you're doing a great job. He put young Black men at gas stations where there are high incidents of carjacking. So these young Black men would stand in the parking lots at some of these gas stations, just looking at ladies fill up the gas tank. I mean, nice job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Art. Wow. You know what? I think the first thing I'm going to do as Congressman, and my name is Steve Dejoie, and I am your next Congressman. I think I'll hire everybody on this panel to work for me and the previous panel. But I want to just say something. I've heard a lot of great information and great ideas about the laws and the issues that affect us all in terms of the paper and things of that nature. But you know what I think what's most important now, more than anything else, is why we're scared to walk down our streets and come out of our homes at night. We live 2 blocks down the street, and just about a month ago, a gunshot rang out from the alley 2 doors down from us, went through the kitchen, landed in the living room of a family that lives 2 doors down from you, just on 84th and King Drive.
Wow.
So if we don't stop the crime and the murder and the killing, and we don't give these kids some advantage to get out of that game, then we're not doing anything for economic development. Because if you can't go out of your house and feel safe, where are you going to go spend your money? How are you going to buy property in a neighborhood where no one wants to even come and visit you? I love this city. I came to Chicago in 1962 from New Orleans, and my mother was a school teacher. My dad was an attorney. We lived down in Lake Meadows. And at that time, Lake Meadows was the hub for all the Black professionals and teachers and young Black lawyers. We couldn't live downtown. Chatham and South Shore were developing. But back then, as a child in the 60s and 70s, we could go to Cole Park 5 deep and play basketball all day. The candidates that you see on the first group, many of them I've worked with. Chris Butler came out and stood with us at the gas stations. Jamal Cole stood with us at the gas stations. The gas station initiative started out just with a whim. We said from 11 to 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, we're going to make a safe zone for women to fill up their gas tanks in Hyde Park.
Wow.
And it may have seemed insignificant to some, but for 22 weeks, we stood there and protected those pumps on that Saturday. And it spread around the city in terms of people getting involved, because when community comes together, we can stop the violence. But until we do that, we are spinning our wheels.
Good job, Steve. Thank
you,
you
sir.
very much. By the way, the Chicago Tribune did a little article on you about the fact that carjackings are down at all the stations that you manned. Way dramatically down.
I don't know if we made that great a difference, but what I do know is
You made a difference, brother. You made a difference.
What I will say is,
Okay.
if one person felt safe, and I had so many stories of women who drove past gas stations because they were terrified
Yes.
to fill up their tanks.
Well, we got some more questions for you, Steve.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
We're going to start.
The black press is over there.
Danielle Sanders again from the Chicago Defender. Republicans across the country are actively trying to suppress the vote. If elected, what would you do to protect voting rights for Black and brown people across the country?
Thank you for the question, Danielle. Jonathan Swain, swainforus.com. I'll do what I've been doing. For 5 years, I was a commissioner on the Chicago Board of Elections during the most tumultuous election time that we've seen. In Chicago, we expanded the vote. In Chicago, we made sure more people had access to vote by mail, more people had access to a same-day registration. We made sure that on the north side, and my voice protecting the south and west sides, we made sure that Black folks were being seen and heard, and they had everything they needed to go to the polls, no matter whether they wanted to or not. Because that's another conversation we need to have, is really about getting turnout up within our community. So my belief is I will go and work with like-minded people, both on the left and on the right, because there are people that are on the right that are in favor of expanding voting, though the powers may try to get them to not be a part of that. I would work with them to continue to do the same work we're doing, using Illinois and Chicago as a model to make sure that people have access everywhere they can.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Say your name.
Kirby Burgess for Congress. I want to thank you for that question. One of the things that we have to first understand is that voter suppression is real. And it's not just, in these suburban states.
Well, how does voter suppression work in Chicago? I don't understand that.
I'm going to tell you, it's not just about voter suppression in these southern states, but we actually need to deal with the voter suppression right here in Illinois. One of the key things that we see is a recurrent of all politicians. We keep voting for the same people over and over and over and over again, and we're not getting any anything in return. The next thing that we can do also is making sure that we're educating our community on the importance of voting. When we're seeing that we need Medicare for all, when we're seeing that we need a Green New Deal to tackle environmental policies, one of the things that we can do is, because this is one of those problems that Ayanna Van Dan can't fix. This problem is one of the ones that we have to fix ourselves. We need to look at the man in the mirror and actually vote for those people that are pushing forth policies that are going to cater to the upper mobility in our neighborhoods.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Young man.
Once again, Robert Palmer. You can follow me on Facebook, Robert Palmer for Congress in the 1st Congressional District. I'd like to say it's Republicans are doing it, but here in Cook County, it's mostly Democratic. People are getting knocked off of the voter rolls, and every time that I go to vote, is somebody there complaining, why am I off the voter roll? I voted last time, because we got to stop doing that. We got to check our party as well. Now, all of this, you can't bring a bottle of water or you can't do this. All of that is foolishness. I'd like to see one day where we have an encrypted voting where senior citizens don't even have to pretty much leave their house. They can do it online. I know that there's voter fraud and things like that that has to be checked. But I think that we're on our path to doing that. I'm getting a quick bail. My bail is quicker than everybody else's. All right. All right. Robert Palmer, candidate for U.S. Congress. We got to. They try to suppress me.
Give the microphone. Give the microphone.
You gonna reclaim your time, Robert? Sharice Williams, website, shariceforcongress.com. So I would do a couple of things. One of the things that Illinois should be proud of is that we have automatic voter registration. When someone turns 18, they get their license, they automatically register to vote. That's something that I would champion across the country. To encourage that, I would work with both sides of the aisle. I think Illinois has been a role model as far as voting throughout the district, and a lot of great candidates have a lot of great ideas to continue that legacy. But I would also continue to register people to vote. I've done that particularly with our teens. I've gone through high schools. I've registered thousands of kids to vote. I've registered people to vote where you have to go to where they are. You can't wait for them to come to you to register to vote. And then lastly, what Darius was saying, unfortunately, there is still some voter suppression, but more so in our southern parts of our state. A quick story, we were in Homer Glen a few days ago, and we were talking to residents, and there is so much voter intimidation that's happening on the local
What do
level.
you mean intimidation?
Voter intimidation, where Democrats are trying to exercise their right to vote in local elections, and Republicans are intimidating them. They're dressing up at them. They're making bad social media posts about them. It's a very hostile environment that's happening in the southern parts of our states. So as an advocate for Congress, I would work to help them do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Pat Dowell for Congress. As a committeeman of the 3rd Ward, I have worked feverishly to raise the voter participation in my ward. When I became a committeeman in 2008, our voting record compared to the other 50 wards, we were like in the 20s. Now we're in the top 10. And I think that's really important because we have to register people. We have to educate voters about what it means to protect that sacred right and to utilize it for our benefit. But in Congress, I believe that we need to focus on supporting the John Lewis Voter Rights Act, which would do things like give us the right to have automatic voter registration all over the country, to have early voting for an extended period of time all over the country, and to make sure that we can vote not just in the wintertime, but in times when it's warm out, where people can come out and exercise their right to vote. So that legislation has found some opposition at the federal level, and I intend to be a voice to push it forward, working with the other congressional candidates and officials. Thank you,
Madam Alderman. Thank you.
Steve Desjoie, your next congressional candidate is the next congressman. Well, you know, they've always fought our right to vote. We had to fight for our right to vote going back 50 years. So we know that there's changes in our patterns and the way we have to get to the polls. And I think the remedy that we need to understand right now is, just like in chess, we know the game they're playing, so we got to outplay it. So what we have to do is, if we know that it's a limited time to vote, we have to mobilize our people early to get out there and vote. If we know you need to register to vote and you haven't registered, we need to register people to vote. You know, this exercise getting signatures for this campaign was quite an experience. And what I can tell you is that most people didn't understand what that signature on that petition meant. But if you didn't sign that petition, you won't have new leadership. If you continue to let the same people come in over and over and over, it's easy just to say, okay, Bobby Rush, next 30 years. When you sign that new petition for a new candidate, you're asking for change. And that's why I got on the ballot. Because I'd seen for 30 years working side by side with many of the politicians, and I will say Pat Dowell was one of the only aldermen that supported us in that gas pump initiative for 22 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman.
Thank you, Madam Alderman.
I'm taking that thing. Give me that thing.
We have another question from the press.
Carol Jones, Citizen Newspaper Group.
Good for you.
Please talk about some of the ways you have engaged the community in the last 4 years.
Ways you have engaged the Black community in the past 4 years. Who wants to start that? You want to start here? Let's start over here. Steve, you go. Here you go. Steve, here you go.
Okay, thank you, John. Okay, I'm gonna need that timer. Okay, now go ahead and start. I started out in 2012 as director of the Acid Illinois program, and it was a program that was run by Carol Adams, and everybody knows Dr. Adams.
Yes.
She had put together $1 million grant to give kids education benefits across Illinois. When I took the program on, the money was skewed. The kids in the program didn't know where they were. I took it over. I righted the accounts. I got the money allocated out to every kid that could use it. We never sent a dime back to the federal government. We used that money. That's first thing. Second thing is, I've been working for the last 10 years to mentor kids across the city. I work with several groups that do the vocational training at Mach 1 Mentoring, which is an automotive program. But the most important thing people have to realize is these programs, these buildings are sitting empty. Kennedy King, where I started out my career, has an automotive shop that can build any car in the city. It's empty. Dunbar has a shop, CVS has a shop, they're empty because the kids aren't in there. We've got programs, but we've got to get the kids engaged. And I got several more program examples.
Pat Dowell for Congress. You know, it's been hard over the last 2 years because of the pandemic to really engage people, right? And we've had to find new ways to do that. But if we weren't in a pandemic, what I do is normally work on various town hall meetings. I work with my churches and their congregations to do things that they want to do in the community. I work with my parks and my park advisory committees to get information from them about how I should be functioning with the park district. The LSCs in my community I work with, when we gave money, surplus TIF funds to all of the schools in my district, I worked with the parents and the LSC members and the teachers and the principals to help figure out how that extra money should be used. Working with people, engaging people is the cornerstone of how I approach my work in my community, and it will be no different should I become your congressman. My commitment is to be accessible and to provide you with information on a timely fashion and be close to the people on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Alderman.
So in the last 4 years or just recent, what we learned is that we have to be flexible. So the pandemic made all of us to be able to adapt because we still had to serve our community. So just in the past 2 years, I helped launch this program called R3, which takes cannabis, the revenue from the cannabis money, and puts it out in the community. We learned, and what I did was teach community members and organizations how to still serve the community during the pandemic. We gave them laptops. We gave them internet services. We hired even navigators to people to go out to people's houses because the schools were closed. We learned how to be flexible with the federal funding, even during this time. Prior to that, I helped increase jobs for African Americans in laborers and trade. So again, we worked with people like St. James. We worked with organizations like Growing Englewood, where we worked with those communities. Again, we went to them and helped bring them to these federal resources or government resources so that they can continue to do the work regardless of what was happening in our community.
Give me your website.
ChariseForCongress.com. Thank you, Norm.
Spell your first name.
CHARISE or Win with Williams. There you go.
Run with Williams?
Win with Williams.
Win with
Win
Williams.
with Williams.
Wow, you got that all locked in, huh?
All right. Robert Palmer, candidate for U.S. Representative in the 1st Congressional District. I like repeating that for some reason. Yeah, I know you all have us doing that. Yeah. But anyway, I've been a member of the local school council. I've been a football coach, a baseball coach, a Special Olympics coach. I actually filed a lawsuit to reverse some speed zone and red light tickets, which was successful. I talked to the people. I'm not a camera hungry person. I have participated in pretty much most of the marches that have come through here in 4 years. And I talk to the people, I talk to youth, I try to set them on the right track. But also the people of our community are tired of the power going somewhere else. Frank Zuccarelli, rest in peace, but Mike Madigan, we got politicians that get tapped on the shoulder and they think that they run the community and they running it in the ground. It's time for a new day. It is time for a new day. Thank you, Robert Palmer.
Thank you, Robert.
Once again, thank you for that question. Kirby Burgess for Congress. You can meet me or find me at KIRBY2022.org. So to answer that question, I'm going to break it up in two folds. As an activist, I have, like him, participated in about every protest. When Trump banned immigrants and said that they was not welcome here, I went to O'Hare Airport and protested, said that immigrants are welcome here. When Trump pushed bills on denying women access to health care, I marched and said women do have a right to their health care. And as a teacher, I have helped all my students that was being taught on the internet reach their goal of passing to the next grade. Also, as an activist, I knocked on doors asking older seniors, did they need someone to go to the store for them? And so one of the ladies, she said, I don't need nobody to go to the store for me, but I do need you to show me how to use this Zoom. And so that was one of the things that we did as well. We went across and knocked on doors and asked the seniors to connect them to their families during this pandemic. So that's some of the things that I've done.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good job.
Jonathan Swain, swainforus.com. 2 years ago, I co-founded an organization called Black Bench Chicago that trained millennials in public affairs and political affairs.
What's the website again?
My website is swainforus.com.
The other one, the
Black Bench Chicago.
Black Bench Chicago.
BENC. We heard from millennials and heard that there was a need for training in the space. We connected millennials to one to another, and we collected them to the now generation and the generation, but even above even me, having Jackie Grimshaw, Harold's campaign manager, as our co-chair. That's what I did 2 years ago.
Wow.
4 years ago, I restructured my business holdings so that I could take the position as CEO of Link Unlimited Scholars, an organization that was in need of a turnaround. And so I stepped in, having been a student in the program, to make sure that Black students had the opportunity to continue to access college like they had for the past 50 years.
Yes.
I'll go back a little further. 10 years ago, I heard the cry from folks in our community saying, why do we have to go to the north side to enjoy summertime shy? So I created an event in Hyde Park that serves the entire South Side, that has become an economic engine and an opportunity for us to showcase the best of what the South Side is. Those are just 3 things I've done for the Black community in the past 4 years.
Thank you very much. Good job. Good job. Question.
Good afternoon, first congressional candidates. My name is Eric Johnson. I'm from the Chicago Crusader. In the past year, we've heard and we've written stories how Black homeowners will use white decoys in order to get true and accurate appraisals on their home. After the first appraisal was devalued their homes by as much as $500,000.
Wow.
Last month, President Biden unveiled a 5-point plan to curb racial bias in home appraisals, but some say it doesn't do enough. What are your thoughts as candidates for Congress for the 1st Congressional District, where home ownership among Blacks are still low? What are your thoughts on improving and eliminating racial bias in home appraisals?
Thank you. Good question.
As someone who's been subject to that, it's a no-brainer. It needs to go. The fact is, we are still living with the legacy of redlining that was created right here in Chicago, and it translates to bank loans. You hear about that with Wells Fargo, turning half of their Black lenders down. You hear about it in terms of the appraisals, the fact that we need to diversify the appraisal industry, because when I was a chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals, I sat there for 7 years. I saw 3 Black appraisers come before me. We must work at addressing this, because this is a key element to fixing the wealth gap. I'd also say there needs to be support for 2nd-generation homeowners. As you look around this community, you have a lot of people that scratched for everything they could to buy a house in Chatham. And now the children may not be able to take over that house in Chatham, and it goes into disrepair. We have to find ways to support this multi-generational wealth creation so that the wealth is not going into the corporations that are buying single-family homes all over the country and becoming the biggest landlords there are. So that's what my thoughts are about that question.
Thank you very much. Good job.
Thank you for that question. Kirby Burgess for Congress. So one of the first things we need to do is elect someone that sees housing as a human right. And so one of the things that I plan to implement, if elected, is a national rent control. And so when we see those types of things, national rent control, and seeing that home owning is a human right, we're seeing a lot of people homeless. And one of the things that I would say too is student loans. When we're seeing that student loans is stopping a generation like mine from getting that capital and getting that American dream from home ownership. Those are some of the things that we need to look at first. And also, I would say seeing housing as a part of the living quality of life for individuals.
Thank you. Thank you.
Robert Palmer, a candidate for U.S. Representative of the 1st Congressional District. I'm a real estate broker, and I really have some ideas to bring affordable housing to our community. I hate to see, I think even one of the comedians went over to Bridgeport, and he was not able to buy, and then someone white came right behind him, and then the place was available. I think that with the tax, the TIFs are being misused. I think some of the zoning can be restructured. I think that just the entire economic engine, you know, Democrats are in power right now. I know that they can't do it all without people from the other side of the aisle signing on to some things. Well, there's my music. But I like to do. Yeah.
Say your website or something. All right.
You can follow me on Facebook, Robert Palmer for Congress in the 1st Congressional District.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sharice Williams, ShariceForCongress.com, CHARISE. For Congress.com. First, I would work to increase the number of Black appraisers into our appraiser school. Okay. So what we do know is that when Blacks try to get their licenses, either it's hard for them to get access, all of a sudden the classes are full, or they just plain and simple don't let them in, would be number one. But just on the federal standpoint, we have to hold our lending institutions and FHA accountable, which hasn't happened. People are not challenging FHA as they should to help fight against the redlining. People need to also challenging our lending institutions for saying no to people that look like us in our communities. For whatever reason, there's a voice, but there's not a movement. And when you have someone in Congress or have me in Congress, I can fight up against lending institutions. I know that space. I've worked with them, and I know how to fight against them. And then on top of that, we have to work with our real estate developers. I say this all the time. It's shameful that I can't afford to buy a house in my area. We need to work with the real estate developers to have them increase real affordable housing and not fake affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
Pat Dowell, Illinois, for Dowell.com. Your question was on appraisals. I agree with candidate Sharice Williams. One, we need to focus more on creating African-American appraisers who understand our community, who have the experience of our community, and bring them into the system. Number two, I think the city of Chicago needs to break up, and this is something that you will hear me talk about at the budget committee meetings. We need a new crew of appraisers in the city of Chicago who understand our city and who can not just come from the suburbs. Most of them are suburban in nature. Number three, I think until we can course correct the system, that we really need to look at perhaps adding a formula to appraisals that give us an equal footing with those communities that are being appraised higher than us. Our real estate is just as important and as good as the real estate you find in the suburban areas on the north side. We just need to make sure that our values are seen as such. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Alderman.
First, let me hold that for a moment. I've been in mortgage banking for the last 15 years. Yes. And currently I work for Seaway Bank, Seaway Self-Help Credit Union right around the corner in our community. And we hold workshops for home ownership every Wednesday and Saturdays from 10 to 12, just so that you know. And what's important to know is that appraisal is based on what's to the left and right of the property that you're appraising. And right now, the rule of appraisal is the properties within a mile around you have to be evaluated against the property that you're purchasing. So Frank Williams is one of the first Black realtors who identified the redlining issue in Chicago and has fought against it for 50 years. I work with him closely. But what I can tell you is, just like the candidate said, there are no Black appraisers. And to become an appraiser as a Black person is almost impossible. We've got to change that. Secondly, we've got to change the formula on determining what a property's worth is, not based on what's around it, because we know what's around it has been degraded as well, and perhaps devalued as well. So when we're selling home ownership to people, we can't hardly get people approved because the appraisals in our community are 30% less than appraisals anywhere else. I'm gonna make one point, Art, and then I'm gonna finish. A loan came through the bank that said 60619, decline. Loan came for the same house, underwriter made a mistake and made it as a Evanston property, approved off the bat. And that's what's wrong. There's prejudice in the appraisal system. We've got to change it.
Are you saying there are no Black appraisers?
I know one
in a city that's predominantly Black?
There was just an article published where they said that in order for Black appraisers to get in, they've got to be an apprentice. And Black folks cannot be apprentice and work for free for 2 years to become an appraiser. So it's keeping us out of the game.
Thank you, Steve. Next question.
Danielle Sanders from the Chicago Defender again. With such a diverse pool of candidates running for the 1st District, is political experience necessary to be effective in this job?
Oh, good question. All right, Steve, get started.
And I'm gonna need that phone again. I am so proud to say that in 2013, I was one of the first Defender Men of Excellence. I actually gave the keynote speech. And I tell you, when I spoke, I said talked about the Dejois Bistro experience, and Billy, you'll remember this. When Barack Obama was in the restaurant, no one knew he'd be the president. And when Biggie was trying to sneak in the back door, no one even knew who Biggie was back then. I think, Billy, you let him in. And so from Biggie to Obama, you know, Chicago is a diverse community. And so what I say about the Defender, I cherish the Defender. I cherish that relationship. My mother was friends with Mr. Sinstad.
That's right. That's right.
So what I bring to the table is 40 years of relationships like that I'm able to use and leverage to help people. If anybody knows me in this room, they know you call Steve Dejois, he brings you a solution and an answer. And if there's not an answer, we find one. That's my strength, finding consensus among our people and bringing in solutions and not waiting for somebody to research and pontificate, but get it done now. And that's what I bring to the table.
Thank you, Steve.
I agree with you. It's you know, not about the political experience is important, because when I first came in as an alderman, it was hard getting my sea legs, so to speak, in that body, because everybody's trying to do, you know, for their community. But I had some experience after working in city government for a while that made it easier for me to get my sea legs. So I do think political experience is important. But I agree with Steve in that, you know, if you have a heart for the people, you have a good work ethic, you have the ability to bring people together, to develop consensus, to take somebody's position who may differ from you and try to work with a position that you may not agree with to see if you can find a win-win situation that will benefit you and your community and the other persons and their community, then I think that's what's important that you bring to that office. I think you cannot have a neophyte or somebody who's just, you know, doing a lot of this to represent you. You have to have a person in there who is going to have the ability to work across the aisles, to work in that sea of old white men and, you know, new folks that are in there, some of the Democratic socialists, some of the Trump Republicans, and be able to find a language where you can work together in a way that's going to benefit the people in the city of Chicago in the 1st Congressional District.
Wow, thank you, thank you, thank you.
So I agree that you don't need political experience, but you do need experience in understanding legislation. What we need is someone, honestly, who can come in on day one and do this job. We are in a state of emergency. necessarily, in my opinion, need someone who has time to figure it out. We need someone who's able to understand the legislation that's happening, someone that's able to work with both sides of the aisle, someone who can be able to take the information from Congress and be able to make it bite-sized to bring back to our community so that they get it, so that we get it, and we get it now. We are going to have $17 billion of money. And the first district historically never gets any of the money that comes from the federal government. We do not have time for someone to learn how to play around in Congress. So yes, we need someone who can come down. No, I'm not a politician, and I'm okay with that. But what I do have is I have a master's in public policy from the University of Chicago. I've helped written legislation. I've helped pass legislation. I've helped allocate and distribute resources that we've gotten from the government to give out to the community. So that's the experience that we need. And we need someone, as Alderman Dow said, that can talk to everybody, from the Trumpers to the moderates, to the Tea Parties, to everyone, and be able to find common ground to get things done, to get in our district now and not tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Robert Palmer, candidate for U.S. Representative in the 1st Congressional District. I want to say that political experience can be a plus, but in many cases, you're groomed by the parties to fall in line. They didn't stand up against Daley. A lot of aldermen didn't stand up against Daley. Rahm closed schools, including a performing school, the National Teachers Academy. A lot of people did not stand up to that. And they're not standing up to Mayor Lightfoot. As far as me, I work behind the scenes with a lot of candidates because, you know, Chicago and Illinois in particular have a lot of tricks to get you knocked off the ballot. If you don't have a statement of economic interest, if you don't have a statement of candidacy, little small tricks and things like that. I'd like to see maybe some of those carjackers one day file for U.S. Congress of the 1st Congressional District. That's what I hope to bring, and the hope and the commitment I hope to bring to my community. I'm for Black people. I want everybody to be included, but Black people have been shut out for so long. We need to stand up for ourselves and have a candidate that's going to fight for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job. Yeah.
Kirby Burgess for Congress. You can visit me at www.kirby2022.org. So per the Constitution, the requirements for someone to run for this office is that you're 35 years old, you are citizens of the United States, and you live in the district of which you're trying to get elected to. So my answer to this question is no, you do not need political experience. You need a people power movement that is going to elect you into office. One thing I can say is this here. We all would be freshman congressmen, whoever is elected. Nancy Pelosi is not going to say, hey, you don't have to go to the freshman orientation because of the fact that you was an alderman or that you was a state senator or that you participated in this or participated in that. We will all be freshman congressmen. And so to me, I believe you don't need political experience, but what you do need is to have the will of the people, and you need to be able to stand up against policies that are not concerning the district of which you're trying to serve.
Thank you very much.
Sure, political experience matters. I have some, a lot of folks up here have some. But you know, Illinois has more Black elected officials than any place else in the country, yet Black people that believe in Chicago for 50 years. It doesn't matter if in your politics, our voices aren't centered. It should be about people-centered solutions. Look at 87th Street, look at 79th Street. Do they look better than they did 15 years ago, 20 years ago? No, they don't. Why? Because decisions have been made for us as opposed to including us in the decision-making. What's more important is not whether you have political experience or not, but are you going to center our voice in the solutions? Listen, I don't have all the answers. I don't, okay? And my wife will tell you, I sure don't, okay? But the fact is, we do. We have all the answers. And so what I hope to do as your congressperson is to gather people together so I can glean from the collective experience in the body and bring that to Washington. I'll tell you this, my decisions are made by my values. I'm anchored in them, okay? I look at what's in front of me, but I make a decision based on my values. My values are three. One, I'm asking, how is this going to impact Black people? Two, how is this going to impact poor and working class people? Because that's not always the same. And three, how is it going to affect marginalized people? We need people in elected office who are leaders, anchored in values and centering your voice. That's what I'm trying to do for you in Congress.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Eli?
We're going to have a question from one of the reporters who just got here, Ron Carter, Chicago Street Journal. But before then, I want to acknowledge a couple of candidates that were here. Well, one candidate, Maria Barlow, who's a candidate for judge, as well as we also had State Rep Nick Smith in the House. Mr. Carter.
Good afternoon. Given the Chicago metropolitan area planning has laid out the plans for the year 2050, and how would you implement your plans and incorporate them within the Chicago 2050 plan? And also, how would you address the congressional legislation of EB-5 legislation that channels immigrants to control the businesses in the Black community?
Wow. That's a heck of a question.
Can you rephrase that? They're a little confused on the question.
If you're familiar with EB-5 legislation from Congress that's voted on it every 2 years that incorporate immigrants, that they pay right now $1.3 million to open up a business in Chicago, targeting to so-called underserved communities where they have to employ at least 10 businesses. As a congressman, congresswoman, how would you inject your plans that the EB-5 be fair with the economic agenda that you set forth, along with the Chicago metropolitan area 2050 plans?
Whew, that's a good one, Ron. First of all, let me say, in the memory of Mark Allen, who I went to college with, who everybody knows Mark Allen. But EB-5, so you all know, is a program that the federal government put out there so that a businessman from a foreign country can make a investment in America for, say, $1.5 million, and then have all of his relatives come to the United States and become citizens. That has to stop. Okay. Point blank, stop.
All right.
Okay. The most important thing is that we have economic development. It has to be fair. You know, it can't be another Culver's, it can't be another Wendy's. It's got to be economic development that impacts communities. You know, one of the things I do in banking is I help people understand how to purchase large development properties using SBA 504 money. That's where you as an investor put up 10%, SBA backs 40%, and then they cover the bank's exposure of 50%. That will enable us to buy shopping malls, buildings, redevelop. Right now, there's a building going up in Bronzeville. And of course, you were a big part of that, the P3 market development with Phil Beckham. Black folks building in the Black community, skyscrapers. And that's the thing that you don't see in our community, cranes going up, buildings going up. There's money coming into Chicago every day, and there's tons of money. You know, what we've got to realize is when this new money comes from infrastructure we build, we have a right. We have a law that gives us 15% of all those contracts and all those dollars. We've got to demand it, and that's what I would do as congressman.
Thank you.
Pat Dowell for Congress, IllinoisForDowell.com. EB-5, I have not personally, Ron, seen work in the west side, south sides of Chicago. I have, as the alderman for 15 years, I have not seen an EB5 application in Bronzeville, South Loop, Washington Park, or Fuller Park.
What?
But it is something that I think needs to be modified. But you have to remember that the first congressional district does not just cover Chicago. It covers rural parts of Illinois, rural parts of the first district, and that tool might be needed in that part of town. I do think, however, that if I were the Congresswoman, what I would focus on would be some kind of legislation to ensure that returning citizens, ex-offenders, automatically be part of any kind of publicly assisted development in the state of Illinois, in the city of Chicago. And that would be something that I would be pushing that would be helpful to our community.
Thank you, Madam Alderman.
Sharice Williams, ShariceForCongress.com. What that program has unfortunately done is encouraged our immigrant population to open things like currency exchanges or kind of those liquor stores that you see in the neighborhood, which we all know is very predatory to our neighborhood and our community. What I would do, and some to the point, which I don't know the data, so to the alderman's point, maybe this is in other parts of the state, but what this legislation has done has been predatory to our communities. So what I would work to modify, change it, repeal it, whatever needs to be happened to make it more inclusive of Blacks, and also to be very specific, Black immigrants. Because the type of immigrants that they're not giving it to is when we see those Black immigrants from Haiti that get turned away. Because, we all know the reason on why that's usually the case. So I would work to expand the legislation to actually go or reallocate the funding, because what's interesting is that when you want to give money to Black people, they say it's discriminatory affirmative action, right? It's always in how they change the word depending on what they need. So I would want to make sure that the money goes to our communities. If they have money for that, then we know for sure that they have money for our communities. And regarding the plan, I'm very familiar with that plan. A lot of the monies that we're getting in the infrastructure bill actually are going to help fund the Chicago Metro, the 2050 plan. So I will work to make sure that that money actually goes to our community. Because if you read the plan, they're very broad in some of it, where they say minority or communities, but we aren't specific on what those communities look like in the plan. I wanted to make sure I answered that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
All right. Robert Palmer, candidate for U.S. Representative in the 1st Congressional District. You can follow me on Facebook at Robert Palmer for Congress in the 1st Congressional District. I want to bring everything that I can, every dollar that I can, back to my community. As far as economic development or economic opportunities, we have a lot of businessmen in the community, but it's not just about the businessmen, it's what they can hand back or set up for the youth. They could mentor, we can have mentoring programs, even if we give some of the business people incentives. And therefore, that would not only create jobs, not only help to curtail some of the carjackings, but it will help our community to thrive. And on another note, I want to say that I did not get a chance to say that I support reparations for the Black community. All right, there's my music. Robert Palmer, candidate for U.S. Representative in the 1st Congressional District.
Good job. Thank you. Thank you.
As someone who was born, raised, and educated in this community, I see firsthand the exact description of what he's talking about. Growing up, we saw these stores that was hosted by immigrants. They control us in these stores. They watching us in these stores. They're treating us like our money does not exist. And so one of the first things that I would want to do is make sure that we crack down on this, that we're looking into this policy and seeing it as what it is, a human rights issue. And so if elected, the first thing that I would want to do is for those immigrant stores that have already received this is pass a community tax where they're paying into the community instead of missing that federal money. So those are that's one of the things that I would do. We also need to crack down on these stores that have they're selling these loose cigarettes to these kids. They're also pushing these high inflation prices on stuff, and they're not pushing quality food into our neighborhoods. So we're only seeing them hosting liquor stores. We're seeing them hosting those stores that does not bring equity into our community.
Thank you. Good job. Thank you.
Jonathan Swain, swainforus.com. In my last question, I just said that I don't know everything. I'm familiar with the legislation that you're talking about. I'd like to learn more data about that. But clearly, I think there's a larger question or issue. One, how do we make sure that businesses in our community are honoring those in the community? Many years ago, when I was a law student, or right after I was law school, I organized a program called Operation Empowerment with Saint Sabina Church with Father Flager, where we assigned people to go visit stores in the neighborhood, and we had a checklist to manage them and to measure them as to whether they were doing what was necessary. Through that, we closed problem liquor stores. Even though at the time my dad was owning a liquor store, we closed problem liquor stores. We closed other stores that had nothing on the shelves and where you were just being used as drug depots. So that's the kind of work we've done to try to address that. But I think the larger question is how do we expand Black business? That's a key point, because for every Black business that has more than one employee, there are 20 that don't. So the question is, how do we make sure the SBA, who focuses on businesses of 250 million and 500 employees, how do we take their regulations and bring them down to businesses that are sized in our community? I mean, I've gotten an SBA loan, and I know the challenge of how I've heard my friends getting loans for $15 million non-recourse. Steve, that means we don't come after you if you don't pay. And I want a loan for $300,000, but yet they want my left foot, they want my life insurance policy, they want my 3 or 4 properties that I own for $300,000, but my guy has 15 million, he can walk away.
Wow.
That's what we need to think about when it comes to economic development in our community. Last thing I'll say is that if you want to turn something around as big as the challenge we've had in our community, we have to develop a big enough engine. And of course, and I would like to start looking at big engines like in the South suburbs that we don't talk about much anymore, but things like the South Suburban Airport that need to be revisited. Now, I would want to work with Congressman Kelly and folks working on that, but it's engines like that that made Atlanta what it is through Maynard Jackson's leadership. Those are the type of engines we need to think about. Engines that are not focused on coming to our community, taking dollars out of our pockets, going into the dealer's pocket, but those are things that are focused on bringing money outside so that we can build businesses, create jobs, and strengthen families.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Like I had said before, if we do not get to your question, we will send the question to every candidate and for them to respond. And we're going to send it back to you via your email address. We're just going to have to ask this one question because we're a little bit over time. So what will be the most important issue you will focus on if you are elected? Starting with you, Mr. Joa.
Don't start that thing. Well, I can tell you just yesterday, I rode the red line from 35th Street to 95th Street with a group of volunteers, and most of them have heard of. Crime is the most important issue that I think we face. And when we rode the L yesterday and they saw Black men standing up to protect the riders on the community from 35th Street to 95th Street, people were saying, well, why are you all here? Who are you? We're here to protect you. And you know what the young lady said that were sitting there scared out of their minds for riding the CTA at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Thank you. So we've got to change our communities back to a safe zone for our people. 35th Street to 95th Street, that's the Black community. It changes when it gets down to Lake Street and then heads north, but we cannot stop our folks from getting to work because they're scared. So my most important issue will be crime, crime prevention. You know, one of the things I'm going to be doing the campaign is bringing kids together with elders to talk about the issues that they're facing and why they feel so helpless in terms of their situation. And through that dialogue, we're going to find solutions. We've got to bridge the gap between our youth and our elders and our community. You know, there's a lane that we're in right now. We're in a good lane, but there's a lot of folks that don't even understand what they're doing every day in the street. We've got to help them move to a better space.
Thank you, Steve. Madam Alderman.
Thank you so much. I think the two most important issues that I want to focus on is how do we invest in the dreams of our young people? Not everybody wants to go to college.
Right.
Some people want to do something different. You know, I heard in the last panel, cybersecurity, but there's things like esports. The transportation industry is growing. I want to make sure that our young people who have a different approach than maybe a lot of us in this room have, that they're invested in. Secondly, I want to make sure that your congressional office is accessible and provide you with information and that you actually see your congressman. It's like, you know, we are around, we are in your community, and I want to do that on day one. Lastly, I want to ensure that the resources, that the tax money that we send to Washington, we get our tax money back in the 1st Congressional District. So all of the things for infrastructure, small business development, childcare, healthcare, we need to get those resources back. And you want to have somebody in that seat who is going to do the work necessary to actually make a difference in your life. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman.
Sharice Williams, ShariceForCongress.com. Increase economic development and have healthier communities. Economic development, meaning the infrastructure bill, actually using those resources that are going to come to our community. Eliminating student debt and reforming student debt beyond that. Making sure that we have healthier communities, actually putting more resources into mental health services, doing real crime prevention and intervention that actually works, as opposed to people just saying that they're doing the work, being advocates for our healthcare, for our seniors. So this is a story, this is a reality that, you know, my grandmother, rest her soul now, but she couldn't afford dentures and glasses, which is absolutely crazy to me. And protecting our women's rights. Women have the right to do whatever it is that they want to do for their body. Right now, it's being attacked all across the nation around reproduction health and good quality healthcare just for women as a whole. That is something that was very instrumental to me just as a single mom having a child, where I had the right and the need to get quality healthcare. So having real economic development and healthy and safer communities are going to be the two things that I'll focus on. Thank you.
Robert Palmer, candidate for U.S. Representative in the 1st Congressional District. I think that's one of the last times I say it today, right? Anyway, my top priority is our youth. If you look at it, G Herbo or Lil Durk has more influence on our youth than someone that was in Congress for 30 years. I think that's a shame. I think that's a shame. And unlike other candidates, maybe, I don't want to say that, but unlike that, I don't fear for my life. I could go into these communities, I talk to people, I try to set them on the straight and narrow, but first and foremost, they have to have opportunity. They have to have opportunity. If you have no alternative, and you in survival mode, your rationale pretty much goes out of the window. We have to do something for our youth. That is my top priority. In going to some of these marches, there are people that actually had the complaint that their community had not been reinvested in with some of the congressmen that are in office today since the Martin Luther King uprising when buildings were burnt down. That is terrible. Who are we sending to Congress? We have to send people to Congress that have our backs. I got your back. Thank you. Robert Palmer, candidate for U.S. Representative in the 1st Congressional District. Follow me on Facebook at Robert Palmer, candidate for U.S. Congress.
So one of the things that I want to say is going over this district, I ran into a lady and I asked her, what can her congressman do for her?
Yeah.
And so she said, well, I'm being honest with you. I'm not trying to get rich here. Only thing I want to do is have a good healthcare system that could take care of me when I'm sick. I don't want to lose my house to medical bills. And I want a good quality education system for my grandkids. And so if elected, that's what we're going after. I say we're going after everything that they said that we can't have, which is a good healthcare system, a Green New Deal, because that brings in not only jobs, but it also tackles our environmental, which is causing these pre-existing conditions that a lot of Black people are suffering from. Another thing that we're going to go into is we're going to go after these health insurance companies. One thing that I saw as one of my friends who suffered from cancer, he had colon cancer at the age of 22. And so here it is. If I went to my doctor right now and said, hey, I want to get a colon cancer check, he's going to tell me no. He's going to say, hey, your insurance company would not pay for it because you have to meet the age of 45. But if elected, we're going to bring that age down so Black men can get tested and we can save lives. And so another thing is we're going to do is we're going to tackle our judicial system. We're seeing that there are 2 justice systems, one for rich and one for poor. And so if you vote for me, that's what we're going to do. We're going after everything they said we couldn't have.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Jonathan Swain, Swain4us.com, Swain4us.com. I'm going to do what you tell me you want me to do. That's the job of a representative. I'm going to listen to the people in the community to say, this is what we should center first. And having said that, I can tell you what I've heard thus far walking in around the district. Folks want some financial relief. Eggs cost too much, meat costs too much. I mean, trying to get 6 wings, it's crazy nowadays, right? It just is. We're going to focus on getting you some relief. That's the child tax credit. That's working on things like student loan debt. I think we all agree, because we all carry some measure of student loan debt, most of us at least. We want to get rid of that, but we want to try to find you some relief as soon as we can, as fast as we can, because inflation is as high as it's been since the 1970s. Unless the Fed acts quickly to try to strike this balance coming into the midterms, we're going to be in a whole lot more trouble, especially what's going on in Ukraine and the issues about oil and our dependency on oil and the like. So it's a lot bigger picture than just, trying to work out what we can do in the short term. The second thing I've heard is that people want to feel safe. And that's broader than just crime. It's about making sure we have housing, making sure we have health care, making sure we have access to mental health care, make sure we have support for our seniors. Folks want to make sure people are safe, including policing. Those are the 2 things that I'll work on as your congressman, or congressperson, excuse me.
I want to thank each and every one of you, especially those of you who was here at 12 o'clock. You've been here since 3:30. It's 3:30 now. Maze is going to buy y'all lunch. But I want to thank Robert Palmer, Kirby Berkins, Stephen Jawab, Pat Dow, Sharice Williams.
Hold up, time out. Stephen Dejoie.
Right. Dejoie and Jonathan Swain. Thank you. I also want to thank the Chicago Defender, the Citizen newspaper, the Crusader newspaper, and the Southside Journal. And most importantly, again, I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank the Chatham Avalon Park Community Council, Chatham Business Association, Chesterfield Community Council, Park Manor Neighbors Community Council, Reunite Chatham, and the West Chesterfield Community Association. Mark, pray us out.
Thank you very much, and to the candidates, and I
gotta thank our moderator,
and to my fraternity brother of Omega Psi Phi, Brother Art Norman. I know, I'm sorry for those that didn't go that way. Praise the Lord. Heavenly Father, we thank you, oh God, for this gathering. Lord, we ask for your blessings be upon us, Lord, as we leave. Let us be conscious and concerned about our city, our communities, and our block. Lord, we pray in the name of Jesus that you use whoever is elected for your glory, God. Use them, Father, to make our place a better place to live. Now, as we leave this place, Lord, continue to protect us, guard us, and guide us. We'll be mindful to give you the glory, the honor, and praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Reverend. Just want you to know that the people here in front of the room, any one of them could win. I remember the last time I did a debate like this, Harold Washington, his seat was open. And the man who won it was a meat cutter. And he ran against Lou Palmer. My goodness. He ran against all kinds of Charlie Chu. And the one who won it was a meat cutter, Charlie Hayes. God bless you. Thank you. Good job. Good job. Good job. Good job, brother. Good job. Good job. Everybody did a good job.